All right. Do I have a motion to return to open session?
Second.
Ms. Franklin and Dr. Roundtree, any discussion? Ms. Osborne, please call the roll.
Ms. Bond? Yes. Ms. Franklin?
Yes.
Dr. Guidry?
Yes.
Ms. Parton?
Yes.
Ms. Purcell?
Yes.
Dr. Roundtree?
Yes.
Mr. Hudson?
Yes.
7 in favor.
Motion carries. Do I have a motion to certify closed session that to the best of each member's knowledge, only public business matters lawfully exempted from open meeting requirements by Virginia law were discussed in the closed meeting to which this certification applies, and only such public business matters as were identified in the motion convening the closed meeting were heard, discussed, or considered?
So moved.
Second?
Dr. Roundtree and Ms. Purcell, any discussion? Ms. Osborne, please call the roll.
Ms. Bond? Yes. Ms. Franklin?
Yes.
Dr. Guidry?
Yes.
Ms. Parton?
Yes.
Ms. Purcell?
Yes.
Dr. Roundtree?
Yes.
Mr. Hudson?
Yes.
7 in favor.
Motion carries. All right, next up, our student representatives tonight are Disha Talagia from Christiansburg High School and Asia McCone from Eastern Montgomery High School. Will you please read our mission and belief statements?
MCPS is an innovative educational community. We value diversity and we are committed to equity and inclusion. MCPS empowers learners to realize success is an ever-changing global society through collaboration with communities, families, staff, and students. MCPS provides a safe, engaging learning environment and intentional exposure to positive social, emotional, and academic experiences. Our core beliefs are, all students can learn in order to pursue their dreams. Schools are safe places of joy, wonder, and creativity. Every person deserves to be loved, valued, and respected. Kindness is an essential skill of a responsible, productive community member. The diversity of our community is one of our greatest strengths.
All people deserve equitable access to opportunities and resources. Every child deserves an advocate. Honoring the voices of students and other stakeholders strengthens the school community. Open communication and feedback are vital to our growth. Learning and teaching are a collective effort that began at birth and involved the entire community. Relationship building and high expectations are foundational to student success.
Okay, great. Thank you both. Our next agenda item is public address. We welcome the opportunity to hear from students, parents, employees, and community members about education matters in this community. As a reminder, the board sets aside 30 minutes to start our public address. We have the option to extend in 30-minute increments, which Ms. Osborne will remind us of. If there are additional speakers after 90 minutes, the board will continue with their business meeting and hold one additional 30-minute session at the end of the business meeting. The clock continues through applause and disruptions. The more disruptions there are, the fewer speakers who get to address the board. I will call each speaker up by name in the order that they signed up. Each speaker will have 3 minutes to address the board. The board does not respond to speakers during public address. The screens will show when the speaker has 30 seconds remaining and when their time is up. Please state your name and the area of the county you live in. The first speaker is Andy Morikawa, followed by, I'll just close it. Go ahead.
Okay.
Thanks.
Good evening, Chairman Hudson, members of the Montgomery County School Board, Superintendent Brigan. I'm Andy Morikawa. My wife Susan and I have lived in Blacksburg since 1978. Our 3 children, 3 grandchildren, and great-grandson all live here and have attended or will attend Montgomery County Public Schools, which is what brings me to speak with you tonight. I've heard that you, the MCPS Board, are contemplating changing the name of the Department of Equity and Diversity. I want to thank MCPS for the vision, creation of, and support for the Department of Equity and Diversity and the work that the team of Guyleen Wood-Setzer and Stacy Wright have been doing. Their mission, the mission of MCPS, to embed equity and diversity into the culture and operations of every school and department. This major commitment signifies to our community, to all who call Montgomery County home, that we have your back. It says to youngsters, to parents who struggle to fit in for whatever reason, that we, this community, this public school system, that we see you, we hear you, we welcome you, and care for you. That's an enormous commitment with a record of ongoing accomplishment. If change like this is slow, and we know that it is, we take solace in the assurance that we've prevailed over the past several decades to take and to keep taking steps forward, guided by the principles and values embedded in our policies and procedures, our daily practices, principles, and values like equity, inclusion, and diversity. Preserve these at all costs. We live in language. Our actions are rooted in language, in principles and values. We know the power of language. Hold fast to these guiding principles, these very American principles. It's been my privilege over the past 45 years, whether as the CEO of the Community Foundation of the NRV or as a member of the Dialogue on Race Steering Committee, to work with MCPS in combating racism. I've come to value and to count on the commitment of MCPS to tackle the tough work of building a culture in which all may serve, all may be heard, in short, a community that works for us all. In these days of tumultuous change, uncertainty, and chaos, I ask that you simply hold fast, stay the course, make adjustments so that we might sustain and keep moving forward. Above all, hold fast to our guiding principles and values, for they guide us doing the courageous work of making ours a community that works for and is committed to us all. Thank you, and God bless America and Montgomery County.
Okay, thank you, sir. Next up is Kimberly Williamson, followed by Judy Berlisky.
Kimberly Williamson, Christiansburg. Regarding DEI, there are those that know they are using race or other categories as a Marxist tool to break down unity and cohesiveness by fostering continued division among stereotyped groups of people. And there are those that truly believe that diversity means unity and a higher standard, that equity means equal opportunity rather than equal outcomes, two very different things, and that inclusion isn't in reality exclusion of those who don't follow the party line, such as your recent discrimination against a qualified student-teacher applicant resulting in a lawsuit you were forced to settle. Long before President Trump's executive order, business after business and school after school have dropped DEI efforts. Why? Because it does not work. Over and over, these schools and companies say that DEI efforts created a simmering underground culture of hostility, fear, and suspicion, a lack of diversity of thought, silencing of ideas, lower professional and academic standards, and a heavy focus on time and activity away from the actual purpose of the organization. The writing on the wall is clear. DEI is finally dying in America. Your choice is clear. Keep the federal money handout or keep DEI. You can't have both. Yet for some inexplicable reason, you chose to use a well-known Marxist tactic to simply rename and hide your Office of DEI without changing any policy whatsoever. And then at the last school board meeting, we were presented with how to address disproportionality of student discipline among economically disadvantaged Black and Brown and special education students compared to their peers. None of these things should have any bearing on student discipline expectations. A disciplinary system needs clear behavioral guidelines and consequences. Creating uncertainty in a misguided DEI approach based upon proportionality of race or anything else is just plain wrong and clearly discriminatory. Not to mention the confusion and anxiety it could create among students who can't decipher an unfair and unequally applied system. Finally, anyone who would like to report discriminatory DEI practices to the Department of Education may do so at https://nddei.ed.gov. And for any who have been afraid to speak up, your privacy will be protected.
Thank you, ma'am. Next up is Judy Oberliski, followed by Kelly Brennan.
Good evening, Chair Hudson, members of the school board, Dr. Bragan, student school board representatives. My name is Judy Borelski, and I live in Blacksburg. Though I didn't attend the last school board meeting, I did watch it, and was surprised to hear that the request to rename the Office of Equity to the Office of Educational Access and Opportunity. As a community member, I served on the Equity Action Team that developed the 2021-26 Strategic Plan's Equity Statement and Principles, as well as Equity Action Steps. It is this work, along with the work of other action teams, that serves as the foundation of the mission and belief statements read at the opening of every school board meeting. As a community member and taxpayer, I am proud of the commitment the board made in 2018 to create an Office of Equity, and of the work of Ms. Wood-Setzer, Ms. Wright, and Ms. Diggs before them. I'm also proud that you have continued the division's commitment to equity. I admire Ms. Wood-Setzer and Ms. Wright's enthusiasm to continue to create a new path forward to positively impact students' lives and eliminate the barriers they face. And I agree with their statements that every student deserves access to a quality education and that student success should not be predetermined by factors beyond their control. However, I do not understand the need to rebrand this work by renaming the office and changing equity to access and opportunity. In fact, access and opportunity are equity indicators, and measures of these indicators show to what degree there is disproportionality regarding student groups. So it's unclear to me why equity, which is the overarching reason for addressing access and opportunity, should be excluded from the office name. I respect that Ms. Wood-Setzer and Ms. Wright want to clarify their work and help other stakeholders understand the office work. However, I believe this can be accomplished without the name change by focusing on existing MCPS equity principles of impartiality, opportunity, access, and sense of belonging. Most importantly, I'm concerned that removing equity from the office name diminishes the value of equity work and ignores the priority it is given in the division's mission, objectives, and principles. However, if, as Ms. Wright explained, a name change can serve to emphasize positive outcomes for every student and clarify the purpose of the office, I suggest Office of Educational Equity and Opportunity as an alternative name to consider. Whatever the decision regarding the name change, it's important for MCPS to maintain its mission's commitment to equity, diversity, and inclusion. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next up is Kelly Brennan, followed by Chris Thomas.
Good evening. My name is Kelly Brennan, and I live in Reiner. It's good to see you all again. I felt like last night's meeting was very constructive, and I would encourage you all to continue doing those as often as you can. I learned a lot, I know that. I'm here to talk about a couple of topics. 2 weeks ago, we were all exposed and shown a new plan for addressing discipline, compliance, and reducing disproportionality. And then tonight, we'll be going over a new division-wide plan for addressing student performance and disproportionality specifically. I really like both of these plans. I think they're exactly where we need to be heading. They're forward-looking and based upon using proven practices that have been used across the country. They're collaborative in nature, involving lots of different stakeholders. They're data-driven, and they meet the challenges that we face head-on, as we were just talking about equity and diversity, and I'll get to that in a moment. But I think these are the things we need to be doing in the school division in order to ensure the best outcomes for all of our students. And as far as the name change for the Office of Equity and Diversity, as Mrs. Wright said, the work's going to happen regardless of the name. And I sure hope that's the case. Because now is not the time to be shrinking from this work or stepping back or pulling back. The truth of it is equity, diversity, and inclusion is nothing more and nothing less than the extension of our constitutional aspiration of a more perfect union. Liberty and justice for all means all, and that's what this work is about. We're here to serve all of our kids, regardless of their needs, regardless of who they are, where they're coming from. So I think these plans are right on target, and I'm ambivalent about a name change, but I am not ambivalent about the work. We have to keep doing that. So thank you all very much.
Great, thank you, sir. Next up is Chris Thomas, followed by Carola Haas.
Chris Thomas, Christiansburg. Members of the board, I'm so sorry that tonight's meeting has been co-opted by the Everything I Don't Like is Marxism Club. There's a particular subspecies of unhinged right-wing lunatic that can't go more than a sentence or two without shouting Marxist or communist or socialist, like Joe McCarthy with Tourette's syndrome. And there is a certain absurd irony to doing that in a school board meeting. After all, what's more socialist than public schools? But rather than just stand up here and dish out the sarcastic mockery this religious pearl-clutching deserves, I thought we could take a moment to understand where they come from, and by doing so get a handle on what they mean. Because obviously there's nothing inherently Marxist about diversity, equity, inclusion, or whatever we call it. Marxism is just a theory about how history works, packaged alongside the fairly obvious observation that the Dickinsonian wretchedness of Victorian England couldn't last forever. Marx's optimism became Lenin's Bolshevism, became the Soviet Union's Stalinism, and Joe McCarthy used all three to turn the House Un-American Activities Committee into his own personal star chamber. Some people never fully recovered from that particular paranoid fever dream. One of the echoes of this dark period of American history is the idea that Marxism, socialism, communism, and Bolshevism are all the same thing. They're not, and that they're all indefensible. Again, the irony of arguing that point before a public school board really cannot be overstated. But a particular brand of pop psychology or philosophy peddled by Stephen Hicks and Jordan Peterson took that idea and ran with it, arguing that since no reasonable person could possibly defend Marxist ideas, anyone doing so must by definition be unreasonable. And then they turned that spurious conclusion on its head and concluded that all unreasonable ideas are, in and of themselves, a defense of Marxism. Cultural Marxism, if you will. And that's how we get a gaggle of godbothers up here choking back tears in front of a school board meeting as they vehemently denounce the crypto-socialist neo-Marxist Marxism concealed in books or history or DEI. None of those things are Marxist. Marx and his followers would bemoan them all as tools of the bourgeois oppressors that divide the classes. But in the twisted logic we've seen on display here tonight, they're part of a nefarious trick to plot our kids into being decent, or our teachers into being decent to each other too. It's all nonsense. It always has been. These objections aren't about Marx or socialism or economics or the great power struggles between the United States and the Soviet Union. They're nothing more than pearl clutchers scrambling for some buzzwords to make themselves out to be more profound than they really are. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And next up is Carola Haas.
Hi, thank you all. I'm Carola Haas from Reiner. I wanted to thank all of you. I was really impressed to see how you stood up and spoke up for the needs of our students and our schools last night at the joint meeting with the Board of Supervisors. So thank you all for that, for being great advocates for our youth. And in that conversation, it also came up that all of us, not just you, but all of us really need to be better at communicating and understanding what the public's needs are, right? Because money is tight, we understand that. Like it's not easy to consider a tax increase for anybody, but we need to get a better sense of what the needs for the public are, right? That if I pay $2,000 more in taxes and I save $8,000 in other expenses that I would have, that's a good deal, right? And so I think that's how public schools work, right? That yes, we invest in them, but the yield that comes back is huge, and it's so much more efficient than what we could do by trying to educate students at home and losing an income. And so I think we all need to do better at making sure that the public understands that investments in our youth yield value to all of us. And the argument that just because I don't have a kid in school right now, it's a waste of my tax dollars, it's a ridiculous argument. Every day I worry about, can I get into a dentist? Is my doctor going to see somebody who's like the electrician I had retired, the plumber I had retired? We need people who have skills and can perform services and can work in our community. And the public schools have done wonderful jobs training students for that. So I really appreciate that. And I hope it will become incumbent on all of us to better argue for why it's worth an investment in our taxes to continue to support our students. And I do want to speak to the issue of the diversity, equity, and inclusion topic. As was referred to, we've got right now a sort of political movement that's just looking for somebody to demonize. And I hope that we can all stand up and protect our kids. I know that we all, it's easy to fall into these fear-based tropes, but we live in a world, our students will be learning in a world and working in a world where some people have disabilities. Some people have different religious practices. Some people have different skin color. Some people have different language abilities. I don't have a local accent, and sometimes people look at me funny because of that. And many of our students with local accents are looked at funny when they go to, Virginia Tech and encounter professors who are not from here, and may have biases against what they think of as a hick accent, right? And those kinds of discriminations, I'm not saying it's common, but I'm saying that it happens. We all have our own biases, right? That if, you have the dumb jock persona, that you think oh, this person is not a serious student, versus somebody who was a student athlete.
Ms. House, I'm sorry, your time's up.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, and with that, the public address is closed. Move along to our consent items. If no one wishes to move an item out of consent, we will consider these items approved. All right. Next up, our financial reports. Do I have a motion to approve, to acknowledge receipt of the financial summary report for February 2025?
So moved. Second.
Ms. Franklin, Dr. Roundtree, any discussion? Ms. Osborne, please call the roll.
Ms. Vaughn? Yes. Ms. Franklin?
Yes.
Dr. Guidry?
Yes.
Ms. Parton?
Yes.
Ms. Purcell?
Yes.
Dr. Roundtree?
Yes.
Mr. Hudson?
Yes.
7 in favor.
Motion carries. Do I have a motion to approve the payment of bills as presented?
So
Ms. Purcell and Ms. Franklin, any discussion? Ms. Osborne, please call the roll.
Ms. Vaughn? Yes. Ms. Franklin?
Yes.
Dr. Guidry?
Yes.
Ms. Parton?
yes.
Ms. Purcell?
Yes.
Dr. Roundtree?
Yes.
Mr. Hudson?
Yes.
7 in favor.
Motion carries. We are flying tonight. We are now to our business meeting. We'll start with a report from the superintendent.
Thank you, Chair Hudson. I only have a few items. As we celebrate Youth Art Month, Montgomery County Public Schools proudly recognizes the transformative power of the arts in our students' lives. This month, we highlight the incredible creativity, expression, and talent of our young artists whose works continue to inspire and shape the vibrant culture of our community. The arts are essential in fostering well-rounded individuals. They offer students a unique opportunity to explore new ideas, develop critical thinking skills, and communicate in innovative ways. Through visual arts, music, theater, and other creative outlets, our students build confidence, cultivate a sense of community, and prepare for future successes in an ever-evolving world. I am continually amazed by the passion and dedication our students show in their artistic endeavors. I encourage everyone to take a moment this month to reflect on how the arts enrich our students, our schools, and our society. Whether through a painting, a performance, or a new creation, Youth Art Month is an opportunity to celebrate the diverse ways in which students express themselves and reaffirm our commitment to providing arts education that nurtures their growth. I want to thank our talented students, their teachers, and all those who support the arts in Montgomery County. Together, we continue to ensure that the arts remain an integral part of our students' educational journeys. In addition, I would encourage everyone to attend the middle and high school art exhibit at the Montgomery Museum in Christiansburg this Thursday. beginning at 5 p.m. The elementary school art was there about 2 weeks ago, and it was great to see the families and the children and being recognized for the fine work that they do. It's truly impressive. The second thing I have is the high school graduation dates have been solidified, and we worked with Virginia Tech to make sure we had those Castle Coliseum for the times we need it. The schools will communicate that to our parent communities and our families, but as an overview, Eastern Montgomery High School's graduation will be on Friday, May 23rd at 6:30, and that'll be hopefully outside if the weather permits at Eastern Montgomery High School. Christiansburg High School's graduation will be Saturday morning, May 24th at 8:30, and that'll be at Virginia Tech's Castle Coliseum. Blacksburg High School's graduation will be Saturday as well, May 24th at 11:45 at Virginia Tech's Castle Coliseum. And the final graduation of the day will be Auburn High School, May 24th again at 3 o'clock. Typically, they do theirs inside at Auburn High School. And lastly, I just want to comment on, I was fortunate enough today, and I missed it for the last few years, was our Farmers Market Breakfast today at Auburn High School, sponsored by the FFA Club there. What a fabulous opportunity. We got to sit with farmers and people that grow our food in our local community, break bread, have some fellowship, and just talk with them about what their craft is and see some of the passion in our young students' eyes that are members of the FFA who sponsored it, looking forward to their future and their careers working in that field. And not as a side note, but the food was absolutely great. Thank you. That's all I have.
Great, thank you, Dr. Bragan. Next up, Dr. Barbara Wickham, our Assistant Superintendent for Curriculum and Instruction, will provide information about how MCPS is using generative artificial intelligence and the MCPS AI literacy plan. Dr. Wickham is joined by several others to assist with this presentation.
Good evening, Chair Hudson, Dr. Bragan, members of the board. The purpose of our presentation tonight is to discuss AI literacy, our AI literacy plan for Montgomery County Public Schools, how we're using generative AI right now, and then also our technology use policy. This year, the Virginia Association of School Superintendents offered training sessions by region to support school systems in developing AI literacy plans. Along with myself, Doug Wickham, our IT Director, Ann Mitchell, Director of Elementary Education, Jamie McLaughlin, Special Ed Supervisor, and Julie Kraft, our lead ITRT, joined me for this work. Ms. Kraft.
So what is generative AI? Generative AI is a subset of artificial intelligence that can generate new content like text, images, video, audio. And as far as AI literacy goes, what we're working to accomplish is for our users here in MCPS to be able to understand the fundamentals of artificial intelligence, recognize ethical concerns that surrounds it, understand practical applications, use it responsibly and ethically, explore the AI-powered careers and innovations that are out there, and engage in hands-on learning.
In collaboration with the other Region 6 teams, we created this draft MCPS Generative AI Literacy Plan. And when you review it, you'll see that it aligns with the guidelines for AI integration throughout education in the Commonwealth of Virginia. It also aligns with our strategic plan. When you go through this plan, what you'll find is that there are goals for different stakeholders and the training that we'll provide and the information we'll provide for our stakeholders regarding AI.
So our timeline started a while ago. When we realized the impact that artificial intelligence could have on education, our instructional technology team jumped right in and started learning as much as we could in the summer of 2023. We've continued to learn. We've stayed immersed as generative AI has continued to change rapidly around us. We've been learning as much as we possibly can about AI tools that are out there that are available for educators, and we've been sharing that information as we go along. In the spring of 2024, we worked with Dr. Bragan and his leadership team with some workshops to start developing AI literacy among our leaders here. In this coming summer, we plan to, you can see in our literacy plan, we plan to start working with school leaders, and then in the following school year, we'll be working with teachers and students and non-instructional staff and providing opportunities for families to learn about AI literacy.
So how are we currently using AI in Montgomery County Public Schools? Well, I could stand here and I could read this list to you. You see a lot of things on the list of things that we're already doing, but we felt like maybe it'd be better off to hear from some of our folks who are using it. Ms. Mitchell.
First, we have Ms. Morgan, principal at Christiansburg Elementary School. She's going to share how she has used AI in her role as a school leader. Next, we'll have Mr. Josh Porter, a special education teacher at Price's Fork Elementary School, and he's going to discuss how he incorporates AI in his teaching practices. And finally, for our special treat, we welcome Seth Blanchard, Lily Goluski, and Levi Hypes, students from Fallen Branch Elementary, and they're going to showcase examples of how they use AI in their learning.
Good evening. Oh, excuse me, Ann. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for this time to let us kind of showcase what we have been doing to stay updated with technology. As a principal, I found AI to be a valuable tool. Of course, you always have to check your sources, right? But I have found that to be valuable. Last year, I attended the White Privilege Conference in Tulsa. And there was a whole lot of information that we received over a course of 3 days, from morning to night. So it was kind of great to be able to take my notes, put it all in. It organized it, it outlined it, it helped pull my themes out from what I had seen that day. And then I wanted to bring that back because we really work hard at moving our students, our marginalized students, our special education students, our children from poverty, our Black and brown children. So I wanted to use that information that I learned to create a PowerPoint, which you all can see. The other thing that I enjoyed about that is when you create a PowerPoint, you spend a lot of time looking for pictures of those PowerPoints to go with it, to recognize your points or to make your points. A few years back at our school, we had a teacher who unknowingly pulled a picture off the internet. It was just a picture of glue and scissors, but it cost us $375 because it was a licensed picture that became harder and harder to detect. So we paid $375, but the pictures that you see in the PowerPoint that I created for our first faculty meeting this year were all generated by AI, by telling it what I wanted. So I was able to do that. So that has been a really good thing for us. I appreciate the opportunity to share this information with you all, and I appreciate you all being so open-minded and forward-thinking. Thank you.
Good evening, board, Dr. Bragan. I am Josh Porter. I'm a special education teacher at Price's Fork Elementary. This is my first year teaching. I'm also a career switcher. So AI has been a huge part of me learning everything. I use it like Google almost. If there are things we're learning about lesson-wise that I need to know, how would the VDOE want a fourth grader to learn this material? What are the standards we can use for this material? It's been extremely helpful with IEP goals, not necessarily using what they give me, but giving me ideas. You can plug in, here is what a fifth grade standard is for word problems. How would you write a goal for this particular student that has a learning disability? You then take that, tweak it, make it specific to that child. I have used it with kids that if we are doing some writing, write a couple sentences, they then can use Adobe Express, create a image off of what they just wrote, and put that image in their writing. They think that's the coolest thing in the world. A kid typing in a cat with 8 tentacles or whatever it may be, as silly as it may be, they think it's the coolest thing when it then makes an image that they can put with their writing. They don't have to draw it. It takes 5 seconds. I've also used it with some of our students who need social stories to help them with time change or the schedule is different. You can put in there that you need a social story for we are having a presentation or an assembly at the end of the day, and it will create a social story that's for a certain age student, and then it will give you suggestions. How can you help them throughout the day with this time change after you read this story with them? So for me, someone who is constantly learning because this is all new to me, it has been, I mean, I use it daily. It's been amazing. But thank you for your time.
Hi, I'm Seth.
Hi, I'm Levi.
Hi, I'm Lily. Today, we will be sharing our experiences with AI. I have found it interesting to learn about AI. What I've learned is that it's fairly new and is probably not going away anytime soon. Since AI will be around when I start to get a job, it will be helpful that I know about it and how it works. Specifically about machine learning. I find machine learning fascinating. I can see how it will be helpful for different tasks. Levi will share more about how machine learning has been explained to us.
Thanks, Seth. In my time of using AI, I've learned that AI is a great source when it's trained right. In class, we've learned about machine training and learning, and how is AI trained. It's important to know where AI is getting its source from because it might have some biased actions or words in it. We've learned that AI isn't always 100% correct all of the time. That's when I have to read and think about what it's giving me for the information. I have to be a critical thinker. Last year, when we were being introduced to AI, we did an activity where we trained AI to tell the difference between a fish and trash. It was a great experience to help me see how machine learning can help. Finally, Lily will share about how we've used AI.
Thank you, Levi, and thank you for letting me share about the benefits I've had with AI while working on projects in school. During my leadership project last year, I used AI to do an interview. It was better than just reading about my person I was researching, because I actually got to hear about life from their perspective. This made me feel more engaged in learning about my leader's life. Another project we did this year was solving a mystery called Who Stole Grandma's Pie? In this mystery, AI was like a person giving us clues. AI made this project fun while we got to learn how to ask questions and pull clues together. I have solved logic puzzles before, but this was different because it was much more interactive. The next activity involved AI generating images. We wrote a story titled A Halloween Costume Gone Wrong, and then we could use AI to help generate a just right image to go along with the story. Finally, we just finished studying the Renaissance time period. While we were learning about this, we used an AI platform to create an animated mouth to sync up with the words that we read. It made it look like a famous Renaissance character was reading their autobiography that I actually wrote and recorded. I hope you can tell from my experiences with AI how much it has benefited our learning. Thank you for your time.
So I think as we continue with our training, we'll have to invite them to come help us out. That was very good. Thank you. I think if you were to survey any teacher, they would probably say something that they can't get enough of, never have enough of is time. And that's one of the things that we hear over and over again, that really generative AI, when used appropriately, can really help save some time. So with our work on our generative AI literacy policy or plan, we needed to update our technology use policy. And when you take a look at the agenda, that's the next item on our agenda. So we'll hold off on that for now. But when that comes up, Mr. Wickham will be available to answer any questions that you have about those revisions. So at this time, we'd be happy to answer any questions that you have.
That was the coolest presentation we've gotten in a long time. That was awesome. Thank you for that. Thank you for everyone who's here tonight. School board, who wants to start? Any comments or questions?
I agree. You know, always encouraged us to hear student voices because they tell us what's going on and what's happening with them. So thank you all. And thank you for the comments about having to learn what AI is actually telling you and what to believe and not to believe, because AI can be a scary thing for a lot of people. So hearing our young people understand that I understand what I have to do with this to make sure I'm getting the best information about everything that I'm asking. So thank you for the presentation. It was wonderful. It's making me feel better about AI.
Dr. Roundtree.
Yeah, sure. So thank you all for the presentation. Thank you to the students. So a question for the administration: how much of the presentation here was put together by AI?
Canva. Canva is like the best tool now.
And then for the students, your AI training module that identified fish and trash. What was the most interesting thing that you put into it that it misidentified as a fish or trash?
I thought one fish was a trash, so I accidentally clicked it, but when I looked it up, it wasn't. Yeah, so it was. I remember that.
It was that old trash fish. We always.
Thank you.
Ms. Purcell?
What kind of AI tutors and chatbots are being used within the division? Just because I know that those tools can be very easily manipulated and become inappropriate very quickly.
Ms. Kraft, would you like to answer that?
So we recognized pretty early on that we were going to need to identify a resource that is safe for students to use. And there aren't a whole lot of tools out there that we would encourage students to use at this point. But the activities that the kids have discussed are working with School AI. It was one of the first platforms that was out there with a student-facing interactive chatbot, and teachers have the ability to give the chatbots parameters for how they want the chatbot to work with the students. And we've seen a lot of good success with that. And we have a data sharing agreement with them. So that's one of the programs that we encourage teachers to use if they're going to use AI with students. We also have some generative AI resources that are available in other applications that we already subscribe to, like Adobe Express. The kids talked about that. And so those are the types of things that we're encouraging teachers to use, the ones that we've vetted and we've made sure that we have data sharing agreements with.
Thank you so much. And I do want to kind of echo Ms. Franklin's sentiments and thanking the students for sharing with us today how they've used it and sharing your excitement. It helped me be a little, yeah, do you want to say something?
I accidentally forgot one thing in our homeroom. I mean, not our homeroom, but one of our teachers used AI to make questions for a test.
What, did it end up being a good test?
Yes.
Because like you even said before, Levi, you have to use your critical thinking and make sure it's giving you the right the right things back, because sometimes it doesn't. And that's, ultimately, that's my concern. I'm a real skeptic. Artificial intelligence only works because it steals. We're forced into using it, I think, a lot more than we realize. So I do appreciate a proactive approach that is hopefully helping students identify when they're using it and guidelines for using it appropriately. Yeah, I guess I'll stop there and let my.
Well, and I would say that part of the training that we had with VAST when we worked with the other school systems in our region, that was part of the focus. So when you go through the different goals and the work we hope to do with our stakeholders, you'll see that that's something that Ms. Kraft and her team, that they come at over and over again. That the importance of understanding what you put in and what you get out. It's all about the human that's putting that information and those parameters in there, and then the human reading that and deciding, is this good? Is this valid? Where did this information come from? So.
Great. Ms. Bond?
Thank you guys for coming out tonight. It was great. I agree with fellow board members that AI was a really scary thing, and it's just so funny. In the last probably month, that's all I've heard is AI at work, from my daughter at Tech, you guys. So it definitely is something that I think I might have to check into and find out a little bit more about it. I do think, as you just talked about the learning tool, learning what's out there. You know, so many older people like myself just don't know what's out there and the things you can use. Canva, for example. So many helpful tools, and we just need to learn about them. So thank you so much for coming.
Ms. Pardon?
So thank you guys so much, and love to see my kids from FBE. So thank you for sharing your stories, and they were phenomenal. And to see you so engaged with this. And I do want to thank the team, because I know this is a lot, and this has been going on for a long time. And Julie, it's good to see you in this capacity again. So thank you for all of your help in trying to get this presentation together. I was talking about AI years ago, and I think I brought up to the board probably at least 4 or 5 years ago my concern with the safety. But I know over the past few years that has gotten and continued to get better. So I'm still concerned about it, only because I know AI is and can be used for so many different things. People are still getting phone calls, AI-generated phone calls, making it sound like there's something that they're not, and people are still falling for things so easily. So as great as AI is, and it's a great tool, and it's great technology, still, the more we learn and the more we teach to learn what to look for, as the critical thinking you mentioned. And you guys actually kind of answered a question for me, about using your critical thinking and still having to distinguish things while using AI. Because the question I had was that my daughter is in college, and she recently had to write a paper for a research class. And one of the questions the professor made sure to ask them was to make sure this is not an AI-generated paper, because there's things out there that will do that stuff for you now. So that was another concern of mine. I don't want you all to stop using this, even though we have all of these great tools that can help us learn how to use this better. So it sounds like you guys are on the right track. So thank you guys for everything you're doing, and hopefully we can continue with this. And I did want to bring up the fact that we are already using this on bus patrol to help keep our students safe. We have AI-generated video cameras to help us see people who are speeding in school zones, and so that is already being used on our school buses for safety. So kudos to Montgomery County Sheriff's Office and Bus Patrol for bringing that technology in to help our community and help our schools and our students. So thanks.
Well, Dr. Guidry.
Yes, thank you, everyone who participated in the presentation. I'm all for literacy of all different kinds. So I occupy a world that's really struggling with AI, with intellectual property and plagiarism and academic honesty. It's a bit of a crisis, like it's an emergent crisis, and students just don't have the same mental framework for how they're thinking about these issues. And so I use generative AI in my own research, and so I am familiar with it. I mean, one of the things that I would like to see, I know we're going to talk about our policy, is that the way in which using technology is extending beyond the way it used to be used before. And when I looked in the policy for anything about like plagiarism or academic honesty, and I just didn't see anything. So what I would implore you to provide guidance. So even like with teachers, it's one thing if they use AI for their own purposes, but then when they, in terms of their mentorship of students, if they start to pass off AI generated as their own work product, are they being required to have the same level of transparency that they would expect of a student writing a research paper? And so just a cautionary tale, because I'm seeing this in the classroom and is extraordinarily difficult. And our teachers need firm guidance from the administration of how to handle this, because it's huge. It's absolutely huge.
So in a broader sense, we did address that in the generative AI literacy plan with the idea that once we really try our very best to get our administrators together and our teachers together to really talk about that guidance and what that needs to look like, because we do feel like there needs to be some kind of consistency. And so over here, while one teacher may say no use of generative AI whatsoever, another teacher may design lessons where you use, generative AI with parameters, just being really clear on what that means for our teachers. So yes, we've talked about it, and that's something that we're going to be developing as we're going into next school year, once we can bring those stakeholder groups together and get more feedback.
Have you thought about putting that into the policy? Because we have a policy, we're doing a first read on a policy right now, and when I'm looking at it, it doesn't address some of these concerns. And so I see this as like a discipline policy issue. And I'm glad that I'm sure you're talking about it. You can't talk about AI without addressing it. But it seems to me that if our technology use is extending into generative AI, then that has to be a piece of that policy. So I would just urge you to incorporate that into any policy changes. But thank you. I mean, I'm a big proponent of generative AI, but we just have to have our eyes wide open, I think. Thank you.
I'd love to hear from our student reps. Just curious, you're both in high school now, and you're kind of, as generative AI is emerging, and now you're trying to weave it into your own academics and how to use it ethically, if at all, right? So, any perspectives you have on this presentation tonight?
So our robotics teacher is a very, very big AI individual. And I took robotics my sophomore year, and we just learned a little bit about coding, stuff like that. And I really appreciated it. It taught me things that I didn't know that I really needed, stuff that I implement into my everyday life today and other classes. I don't use AI as much as other classes do, just because I'm not more of a recreational type individual. But I can appreciate it, and I think that this is a great idea, and I know that I need to learn more about it. So I appreciate this presentation. So.
Having an uncle who's in engineering and IT and all of that, he's all for AI. And something he's always told me is, AI can be a very scary thing, but it can also be a very good thing, and it's all about how you ask that question. It can give you information about anything, but as long as you ask the question correctly, it can give you the right information. I think it can be a very helpful thing of explaining ideas or things at school that you don't quite understand, but also you run into that thing of, are students actually doing their work, or is it just something that, is kind of copied and pasted off of AI? So I think, as they had mentioned, using our critical thinking is something that is obviously super important. We're still getting this knowledge from school, so that's something that I feel like is still super important. But I do feel like AI is a great thing of helping us understand deeper about whatever it is that we're learning. So, all about how you ask the question and how you interpret the information you're given.
That's great.
And one more thing, I do think that there can be limitations to what students have access to. And we have a very good system that blocks a lot of things. So I feel like that can also be implemented to kind of prevent that question of, can this be used inappropriately, stuff like that. Just monitoring it well.
Yeah. And I'll just share my own perspective. I'm in the software industry, so, if you're not using AI in my industry at this point, you're behind, right? So both in terms of the products that we produce and how we produce them, but, certainly a lot of the questions and issues that have been raised tonight are the kinds of ones that we grapple with on a daily basis, right? The ethical use, the ownership of the resulting product, what information you share with AI, like personal information, company proprietary information, it's up in the cloud, train somebody's model, and you've lost control of that, right? So all those are really important factors to weigh in. But again, so folks coming into the software industry, into STEM, at this point, if you're not AI literate, then you're behind. I love that we're starting in elementary school, starting to gain that literacy and the understanding, questioning the data sources and making sure it's valid and understanding it. So that's outstanding. But I had the same concerns that Dr. Guitry had when I was looking at this because of the ethical use of it and the ownership, right? We run into this a lot. I run into it personally when I do a lot of college recruiting, right? Because we're asking technical programming questions, and we know that students are using AI in the middle of the interview to cheat on our interviews, right? And it's hard to detect it sometimes. It's so it's listening, sending it out to query, and presenting results in real time. So it's hard. And so again, it's important for us to factor that stuff into our policy, to make sure that our students aren't using it inappropriately to cheat on their work or whatever they're doing. But equally important to understand these principles early in the career, because when these kids come through our school system and are graduating, I'm pretty sure AI is going to be everywhere, and you're going to have to know how to use it effectively. So
I think that was one of the first questions that came up, and it was the beginning of last year. Well, do we ban ChatGPT? Are we going to ban this? And ultimately, the team sat there and said, this is not going away. This is like back 100 years ago when I was in school, and the teacher would say, you've got to do this without using a calculator. Well, guess what? Calculator didn't go away. It's on your phone now. So really, it's figuring out how do you embrace this and use it for the good.
that's right. Board, any other questions or comments? Okay, great. Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys.
All right, and next up, the administration will present the revised technology use policy for first read tonight. Doug Wickham, our Director of Technology, will be available for questions if needed. And we already kind of touched on some of these topics if you want to start.
I made a note of that. So I looked at the staff side. There is a line on number 12 on the staff side that says MCPS staff shall comply with all applicable copyright regulations. And then we added the AI. So I think that line definitely should be in the student one as well. So we talk about copyright and throw in the ethical part as well. I agree with you. I like that. So thank you for bringing that to our attention.
Board, any questions or comments for Mr. Wickham about the policy?
I'll just make a comment. When looking over the policy and the terminology that's being changed, that I remember it was being changed to that, and now we're changing it again to keep up with things
We tried to generalize some things because if you look in there, there's tape drives and some technology. So we tried to eliminate that so that this document can remain fresh.
Right.
Outside of major changes. Unfortunately, I'm old enough that I wrote one of the first policies for my previous school division, and it came about when the internet came to be, and people had trepidation and fear about that. Then the next major revision came when we went to one-to-one devices, because there was fear and trepidation around that. So I see this being the next iteration of something new, and I would say that nobody would say putting the internet in became a bad thing. It became a positive thing. Same thing with one-to-one. Imagine in 5 years, 10 years, we'll say the same thing about AI. So
Yeah. So that was my point, is like, make sure we're keeping up with what's going on, and then having our policies to reflect that. And thank you guys for understanding we have to have this stuff in there to make sure it stays safe and viable. So it's scary and exciting.
Dr. Roundtree?
Yeah, I mean, this is great. AI is not going anywhere. Just like the internet, people were concerned about word processors and spell check, and that kids wouldn't learn how to spell.
right.
Well, maybe they didn't learn how to spell, but we spell close enough in order for the word checker to tell us what the right word spelling is. So, yeah, the appropriate use of AI is something that we need to be teaching our students, and our teachers can gain significant significant benefits and time savings from utilizing it. So, thank you.
Ms. Purcell?
I don't think I have anything to share or ask that's different from my colleagues, but thank you for your work and your effort to keep it as evergreen as possible. I know that's a challenge when things are changing. Thank you.
Ms. Bond?
I'm good.
Ms. Pardon?
Mr. Wickham, thank you so much. I know trying to keep up with this is hard on the policy because it's going to keep just getting better and better. And the way you have this worded, you've taken care of a lot of the future, so we shouldn't have to make too many changes. And thanks for everything you're doing on the safety end, as well as teaching our teachers and our students appropriately, getting them to read the policy, getting the student to sign it, the parent to sign it. So hopefully families and students will be read to, or students will read it and parents and understand it. And if they have any questions, please feel free to reach out to us if they don't understand anything. Thanks so much.
Dr. Guthrie?
Yeah, not much more to add. Just thank you for being receptive. Yeah, I see that line. Some of the conversations, if you approach it through copyright, that's the older way of thinking about intellectual property. So I would be a little bit more robust in how you deal with it, and then make sure that there's linkage to the code of conduct. So it's 'cause I actually didn't review the student code of conduct to see if there's intellectual property as part of that code of conduct. So, and I wouldn't just copy that line up for the students. I would actually give it more attention, both for staff and for students, to give guidance, because our teachers are going to need it in the classroom. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Yeah, great.
Great. I don't have anything else. Mr. Wickham, thanks for presenting tonight.
Okay. I would like to also say that Julie Kraft and Kevin Blevins helped all this work, so it wasn't just me. I want to give credit where credit is due, so thank you.
Great. Thank you so much. All right, next up, Ben Montgomery, the General Manager for Sodexo, will present an update on Sodexo in Montgomery County Public Schools.
Chairman Hudson and the Board of Education here and the student leaders, Superintendent Bregan, thank you for allowing, of course, the superstar here, to provide a brief update to you around Sodexo. My name is John White, and I serve as Vice President to support this awesome team. And George Higley is the regional manager that's here frequently. But Ben and the entire resident team, the members that are here, certainly are proud of the work they do. And this being National Nutrition Month, we certainly a great opportunity for us to provide an update. So I think we have, of course, George and Ben right there in the center there, but this entire resident team that's here, some superstars that are committed to Montgomery County Public Schools. We're going to briefly go through our people story, student engagement, and driving financial performance and the look ahead. And Ben is going to walk us through here.
Absolutely.
So go right ahead.
Yeah. With that, we know that program excellence starts with a solid team. That's the foundation of all of it, and we've been very blessed and fortunate to establish that management team as well as a frontline team. To adopt a brand new culture, implement new programs from recipes, ingredients, LTOs, everything from start to finish is a huge undertaking, and our team has done a phenomenal job executing that and implementing that. And I know it's because we have the shared vision, which is to give our students the best experience possible when coming through for breakfast and lunch. We wanted to kind of touch on our recruitment and our retention. So we started the year out at a 34% vacancy rate, and we are currently right now at a 6%. And this was done through a Sodexo tool called Dexy, and Dexy uses AI and essentially just automates the entire hiring process from start to finish. It's actually a really cool program, not only for the frontline user, the potential candidate, but also for the hiring manager, because it does everything and it's just completely streamlined, right? So they'll go ahead and apply. It's all done through an app that comes to the back end. It schedules the interviews, does everything on our calendar, facilitates the paperwork, as well as processes them into our payroll system. And everything is just, like I said, it's done through the front of their phone, so it's very simple for them too, and the communication piece is right there. Oh, one more time. At the inception of our contract, we went ahead and increased our minimum wage by 5% so we can maintain same par with the district. We will be conducting annual reviews with our team in the month of April, and that will go ahead and initiate wage increases going into the new year as well. And we also wanted to touch on how we really focus on recognizing our team and promoting internally and just keeping those opportunities for our folks so that they can, if they're interested, move up and take on that extra responsibility. For the student engagement piece, we wanted to touch on one thing that we're really proud of. I'm gonna move here on my notes. Is our Big City Bites program. And this is something that we've been doing at elementary and high schools. And the idea behind this is just to bring in experience from different cultures in different parts of not only the United States, but the world, and just bring that into the cafeteria. Of course, packaged in a K-12 compliant meal for our students. And just give them that exposure, that experience, and try to create that excitement for them as they come through the line, and hopefully gain additional customers and increase our participation. We also wanted to extend a formal invitation. I know we have a few joining us for our Future Chefs competition next week. This is a national competition run by Sodexo. It's hosted at our regional level, Mr. White's region, and then from there it'll go to a national level, and we want to go to the national one and win. So we're excited to be hosting that next week. It's going to be essentially a culinary cook-off with elementary students. We've done 4th and 5th graders. We've had a couple dozen folks go ahead and put in applications. And right now we have 10 out of 11 schools represented to compete next week. So that's going to be exciting. From a driving of financial and performance, we wanted to talk about some of our accomplishments and then some key opportunities that we still have available. Overall participation for breakfast, we were ahead at the beginning of the year, but unfortunately just due to weather, that does impact our sales when they come through, as I know it does for other businesses, the schools, and everybody else experienced that. So we are currently year over year down 1.2% at breakfast, but while still having those challenges, we're still currently up by 1.8% for lunch. We did touch on our vacancy rates. We've also implemented a robust retail program, and we've increased our year-over-year sales by 16%, which is just shy of $90,000 on that end. And we've had a successful federal program administrative review. It's called an FPAR. This is, and I'm sure you've all heard of whole grain requirements, sodium requirements the past 10 years. Half cup of fruit or vegetable, I'm sure you guys have, half cup of fruit or vegetable with your meal, right? So these are USDA guidelines that were created in 2010, implemented in 2014. It's called the Healthy Hungry Kids Free Act. These are done by the USDA and enforced and audited by the Virginia Department of Education. I know I talked about the sodium and whole grain. That's a 30,000-foot view. It's significantly more technical than that. But that happened in October and November, and we passed. We did very well overall. I mean, this is something that's not only on the food. It's for the entire food service department, but it's not only on our side as the food vendor, but there was a lot of administration work to be done on the district side as well, with Michelle Knotts and Cheryl Knotts, who did a phenomenal job as well with everything. Our key opportunities that we really want to hone in on, focus on, the inclement weather days, as we discussed, I mean, that does have a pretty significant impact at just shy of $300,000 revenue loss for the district. If no students aren't here, obviously they're not going to be eating with us. We did have a decline in enrollment, which is an impact of about $51,000 for the entire year. I think we're down about 107 students roughly from year over year, according to the statistics that were on the VDOE. The inclement weather delays, we know those really impact breakfast. Our kids they're eating at home. I mean, if they're coming in later in the day, they're not going to be eating breakfast with us. They're going to be eating at home. The key opportunity that we want to do, though, because then the question comes, well, how are we going to close that gap? And so we really want to look into expanding our summer program and seeing what opportunities are available with that. And then a look ahead. I want to touch on this individual right here. This is Teresa Hinckley. All of you may know her. She did win the Support Service Staff of the Year award a couple board meetings ago. This was her during an interview with Channel 10 News for our Second Chance Breakfast cart that was implemented over at CHS. She did a nightly one, and she did a phenomenal job on that. So through program growth, the implementation of the Second Chance Breakfast cart, this is something we started at the beginning of the year. It started off kind of slow, but as you can see, from 9 to 90 meals is significant growth. We're going to be using this because Michelle Knotts has applied for a grant from the No Kids Hungry Foundation, and we were awarded $20,000, and that has been used to purchase additional breakfast carts to go ahead and expand that program out to more schools. Right now, we currently have it at 2. Our goal is to have it at 5. We're going to continue doing our chef samplings and demos at our high school. We seem to get pretty good interaction on those when those are available. And we are being able to integrate some of those items into our menus in hopes of increasing participation and getting that student engagement piece. We were able to get digital menu boards set up over at Blacksburg's High School with the assistance of IT Director Doug Wickham. He helped us from beginning to end in getting those installs, and this is a very cool program. And we're looking to push that out at additional schools where we know we have that opportunity, where we're gonna see a heavy impact from it. And then as we've been doing the high schools, we're gonna be moving into that middle school with the food engagement piece. We want to do a full execution of a student feedback plan. You guys know what's going on. You know what your I'm thinking colleagues, but the other students are saying, right? And so we can solicit that feedback from you guys and see what we can do to improve that program from your guys' perspective. We want to continue to implement sustainability initiatives with student input. We had great success when we did this at CMS, where we sat down with some students and they wanted to change some stuff with the lunch programs in regards to sustainability. And when we walked out of there, the agreement was that we were going to get rid of styrofoam trays. And we did, and we thought, this is a great savings opportunity for the district. This is a great way for us to deliver on our sustainability promises as an organization. I think everybody can agree it's an overall good thing and a win-win for everybody. So we've been spreading this out and doing this at each school where we're able to do that. We're going to be launching a leadership academy. This is a really cool idea, and this is really aimed at isolating folks within our ranks that are interested in learning more about our business, learning more about K-12 and food service, the nutrition department, and potentially want to take on extra responsibilities and move up, right? So this is going to be able to have them come in, learn the skills, learn how to properly order, how to learn to do our meal keeping systems, how to go ahead and use some of the programs that are very popular within our industry, and provide them that skill set so when the time does come, it'll be a seamless transition and they have the tools and knowledge ready to make that leap. We've talked about the hosting Future Chefs competition. I'll reiterate that's next Wednesday, so if anyone is interested in coming or has that time available, please, by all means, stop by. That'll be 3:30 to 6 o'clock at Christiansburg High School. And again, partnering with Michelle and the district to see what kind of opportunities we have to expand our summer program. And with that, appreciate everybody's time. If anybody has any questions.
Yeah, sure. I guess, maybe before the school board comments, I'd like to hear from our student reps just to kind of see if you have any specific reactions or any kind of feedback you've heard from your peers. Put you on the spot here.
I'm a big student athlete. I care a lot about protein, what I'm putting into my body. I try to eat 4 meals a day, stuff like that. I started packing about 2 years ago because I was not thoroughly satisfied with the quality of school lunch. And I feel like some people are still not as satisfied with the quality of our school lunch. The fruit has gotten significantly better. It doesn't taste like chemicals or anything. So, and the pineapple slaps. I will say that. The pineapple is very, very good. There's just little things that I think that could be fixed, just like a variety of menu. That is a big one. We have pizza a lot. So, we're very appreciative of the snacks that are like an option. I know a lot of people really, really use those and whatnot. My school has free lunch for everyone because of economics and stuff like that. So it is heavily utilized. So students are very appreciative at our school for the food that's provided. So y'all are doing a good job. Little things, but.
I can't really give feedback on the type of food just because I've been a packer since, primary school. I'm just a picky eater, so I've just always been a packer. When it comes to student feedback of what I've heard, I think definitely students are wanting a different variety of food. I think it's just they're kind of getting tired of the same, like pizzas or hamburgers or just like, the similar things. Although they like it and, that's very popular and it's one of the items on the menu that are, kind of a little bit better than the others. They would like a little bit more variety. I know the snacks and the drink at my school is also a big hit. The kids love the chips. The kids love the different types of drinks that we have, the ice cream. Though on the healthier side, they do like that. So I think the biggest thing would probably be variety. But yeah.
And we'll look at those things. That's good feedback. Thank you.
Great, thanks for sharing that, especially on the spot there. So I think it's helpful for us to hear directly from the students anytime we can, especially on things like this that affect them on a daily basis. So, school board, any questions or comments?
One of my concerns, and has been for years, it's not just with Sodexo or any of the other groups that we've had, or even when we had Montgomery County Schools, is the waste. Because even though I do know students like the chips and things, I do think maybe in the secondary schools, it's a little more governed and they can do both. But when we've got early education and they're buying chips and tossing the lunch, and especially, when we've got requirements that you have to put on the tray, whether they like them or not, they're not going to eat them. Okay, well, it's, we'll put it on there and they might, no, they're not going to, as well as picky eater. My daughter was extremely picky, so I understand completely. But from talking and kind of just finding out some information, I know we have a share cart, but if a item that's put on that share cart, it does not have a lid on it, it has to be tossed. Has there been any research on looking to what, because if things like that did have a lid or a covering, something that was inexpensive, I don't want to toss that cost down to the student, so I'm not even going in that direction, I'm just asking if there was an inexpensive way to do that, to salvage some of those things that get thrown away.
That's a good question, and as long as the wrapping and everything is taken care of, it's still reusable, right? But for some of those options that you're referring to that aren't, I think that we could potentially look at, and I don't know what's available in the district, and perhaps this will take some digging on my part, but if there's any sustainability initiatives, gardening programs, I don't know if there's any livestock available that we can take that and feed that to, anything to avoid putting it into the trash. Right.
And I think, again, that's one of those things, someone that would have that is probably unknowing that would be an availability, because I think at one time they kind of said, no, we can't continue doing that because of government regulations. And so I understand that you guys have to follow guidelines as well, but if there is something out there, I'm sure there are people that would be willing to step up, but just even for fruit and vegetables that are, we know last longer than a day. And it's just sad to see those things thrown away that you could put in a fridge and bring back out for an extra. So that's one of my two of my concerns is with the sale. And I guess I hear youngsters and parents, and that's a governing home issue in my opinion, about money on on your account and what you're using it for. But it's just funny how I hear conversations, oh, well, they get 2 or 3 bags of chips. But I can't help but wonder, for a 7-year-old, what's happening to the lunch if they're eating 2 bags. So those, and tell me a little bit about the second chance breakfast, because I kind of hadn't seen that on the news, and someone had shared that with me, and I went, well, we're not doing that. And they were like, yeah, you are. Okay. All right.
Second Chance program is a really cool program, and it's for breakfast, and it's just that, it's a second chance. So for our students who are perhaps not hungry in the morning when they came off the bus because they just woke up, and it takes some time for them, just to get that appetite going, it provides an opportunity between normal breakfast and lunch to go ahead and get something to eat.
So how do they do that, though, without missing class, coming in late, being tardy? Because I feel like we have a problem with students being tardy, coming in late, and I think we need to kind of get a governance on that as well.
That's a very fair question. And one of the things we looked at, because we were struggling with that in the beginning, is we were maybe having 10, 15 students behind. And one of the ways, it was a trial and error, and this is why I like that we've done it, because when we implement the additional cards, we've already figured these things out. So some of the key things we did is we transitioned from just a normal laptop to a touchscreen. Instead of doing one pin pad, this is where they put in their student number, it goes in the program, we register the meal, we do 2, and the kids can come through on both sides. We actually shifted the line from just, it's a cart, and we had the item shifted going one direction, so the students were just coming down one side, we dualed it up, and now they come down both sides. Gotcha. So we really just look at these opportunities to create efficiency, and I know in about 5 or 6 minutes, Teresa's running through she reached 100. I know I said 90, but she texted me the other day and said she reached 100, and she's going through 100 meals in the time that it's been a while.
So is that in between classes, though? That's what I'm asking. So they are coming down in between, and they're not tardy for the next class?
My knowledge is not at this point. It's gotten better. We'd have to follow up, I think, with the middle school principals and the high school principals we have it implemented to verify. But my understanding is the improvement is very noticeable.
Okay, and making sure that, everyone understands I don't want any child to go without food. It has nothing to do with that. But, one of the things we talk about is preparing students for the future. And some of our seniors are going to the workforce, and, being on time, those are important things that we really need to focus on for our kids to be prepared in the workforce or in college. And I don't know, that's kind of resonated with me. So I just wanted to make sure I touched base on that it's not causing a tardy issue. So, thank you.
Something, second chance breakfast is huge for my school. It really, really has been ever since it started. Like I said, we had the reduced meals and stuff due to economic reasons and stuff like that in our county. And a lot of students, they have issues finding a ride to school sometimes just because buses, we live in a very rural area. When I rode the bus, I had to drive a gator down a half mile because they couldn't go up my road type thing. So I just feel like having that second chance to kind of get a meal in is extremely important because some days it's hard to even find a ride to school. So,
and absolutely, that's an extenuating circumstance that I don't even mean to put into the conversation. That's something that's just completely, acceptable. But I do think we have other situations that play into the factor. As you well said in the beginning, it was a little bit of a tardy problem, and we all know our students can take advantage of those situations, and so I think we just need to be aware of those things because we want to make sure that we're governing our students to be prepared for workforce as well.
Ms. Barton?
So you guys are doing great. I've heard nothing but great things. I know more people are eating lunch now and not packing. My daughter was one. And the second chance breakfast, I did want to touch on that. I had heard from people in my community. It's huge. And it's not just there, but it's at all the schools because I've heard all the students rave about it. And sometimes you wake up and it's early and you're just not hungry that early. But after you've been at school for an hour, or maybe there's nothing there for breakfast. So thank you guys so much for providing that. Because you do depend, and lunches vary from 11 to 12:30 or 1, I think. So, you know, if you eat an early lunch and you don't grab breakfast, maybe not so much a big deal, but if you're having to wait till C lunch, that's a pretty long gap. So it fits those needs as well and helps them with their mentality and their concentration and everything like that. And thank you for bringing everything up. I'm sure your employees are very thankful for the increase in meeting with us to feel like they're on par with what our employees are getting paid. So that's just the camaraderie there and how we work together. I think that's huge. So thank you guys for doing that. And just keep up the good work, and thank you so much for all the great meals before our meetings, because they have been phenomenal. So we appreciate you taking care of us as well. So thank you.
Dr. Guthrie.
Yes, thank you so much for the presentation. I know you're in a difficult business. Margins are very tight, and so I appreciate the constraints that you're under. So the student feedback plan, when is that going to happen?
So we're meeting with our staff, our managers this Thursday, and we're going to kind of discuss our process and how we want to go about that, right? What's it going to look like? I think the best way is to start with key folks at the schools, like organizations, whether that be student government, whether that be the board, and solicit their opinions on the best way to approach it to have the biggest impact, right? What groups do we want to get in touch with? And then start from there.
Okay, so you think this year you'll?
Yes. Yeah,
okay, great.
Absolutely.
Because I would love to see that, because I have heard some grumbling about some of the food. So I would love to hear from the students' perspective, because you've been here for a while now and settled in and got your processes in place. So I'd love to get that feedback. Another thing I heard was concern from a parent about the availability of what they call junk food snacks, and that it was a little more constrained. And I don't know if it was a particular week, but the parent was like, it used to be like at Fry's you could have ice cream or something, and I'm just throwing this out, but it's like, it's every day, it's like chips, Rice Krispies, and that's, so the parent was very concerned that this is what their child's eating instead of healthy food. Can you speak to that issue? Because I'm not there and I wasn't able to respond, but I just want to be able to answer that parent's concern, if you could illuminate.
Totally understand. So we do have a pretty, like I mentioned earlier, a robust a la carte program that we have running at almost every single school. There are constraints at some, as for an example, and you touched on this, on Fridays is where we do ice cream for elementaries, with the exceptions, I can think of one school, there may be a second, where they stagger it. So like, let's say on Tuesday they do a kindergarten, Wednesday they do a first, right? But the ice cream availability for that piece is pretty structured. In regards to the chips and everything else, they are available. They do follow what we call, they have to go through a smart snack calculator to be compliant with USDA standards. So I know that perhaps when a parent may see a Doritos bag and think, oh, this, it's just like a gas station Doritos. But I mean, these aren't ones that I think any adults in the room would really want to go. It's reduced fat, reduced sodium. It's essentially just corn with flavoring, corn chips with Dorito flavoring on them.
Yeah.
That's been reduced.
Okay. And then the other question, so there's been a comment from one of my colleagues here about waste. Can you, do you quantify waste? How much waste, because I know in some level you have to keep track of waste in preparation, but once it's prepared and it's being served, is waste a serious problem? And if it is, how should we address it? Is it being addressed? Can you speak to that concern from one of my board members? Because we're right now trying to get money from the Board of Supervisors to fully fund breakfast and lunch across the division. And I want to make sure that that's not an impediment if it's not a real problem. And I don't know one way or another.
No, and I think
but you
that's
would
a
know.
really good question, and I can expand on that. So we do quantify it. My rule of thumb is 5% food waste left over. So for every 100 meals, you could throw away 5 to 7. And our folks are forecasting out generally especially at our middle and secondary. So for folks doing 400 or 500 meals with 10 different entrees and trying to find that right ratio of a split can be challenging at times. But after we've gone through our first, what we call a menu cycle, all of our data is input to a program we call Premier Edge. It's our meal keeping program where everything's tracked. So after that first cycle, which is now over,
yeah,
they know what the trends are, right? So now that they're way better and sharper at forecasting.
Yeah.
So to answer your question, that's the tool that we use to minimize waste as much as possible. I can tell you just from like a 20,000 foot view that I'm looking at, we have a very competitive food cost with other districts that I look at. We're beating them by 1 to 2%.
Okay.
Which tells me that we are being very responsible with our food.
And that's not just on the food preparation side, but that's also like kids who are not even eating.
These are
Right. Are you monitoring that side as well? Is it only on the food preparation side, or are you able are you tracking food waste after food has been delivered or taken by students?
That's a good question, and no, we're not. What we kind of look at is when the folks come through the line is that they have what we refer to as a reimbursable meal, because this is what, and it's I don't want to get too in the weeds, but it's 3 out of 5 components. In how we really structure our menu is that it's going to be a grain, a protein accompanied with a half cup of fruit or vegetable. So our main focus is to ensure that when they go through that cashier, the point of sale, and this is what the auditor looks for, believe it or not, they will stand over and watch, is that they have 3 out of 5 components absolutely minimum. And that is the key thing that we really look for at that point. Once they leave that point of sale and go past that, it's you know, what they kind of do with it at that point it has kind of been up to them. If that's something that we wanted to pursue and track, I think that there would be some opportunities there. Something as simple as just labeling trash cans and weighing them at the end of the day, right? Like there is opportunities where in programs that we could implement where we could start tracking that if that was something that we needed to do.
Well, I think that one of my colleagues would like for you to do that because
Well,
I
I mean,
think if
and
it's
I'm
a
not
concern.
saying due to the extra work or anything like that, but my question was that kind of way. So I'm sure that you monitor every bit of waste that you have in the putting it out. I have no question on that. Mine is, just like I said, you get a child, they're, sit down and they talk to their buddies, and before they know it, they've got 5 minutes, they've got time to take 2 or 3 bites, and the rest of it goes in the trash. And while we're trying to get finances for that, I have a problem if that whole, because I've seen kids take a whole lunch and dump it in the trash, and that's not good for anyone. So how can we?
We start looking at composting, or we start looking at local stock that could potentially use that secondary thrown out food to feed livestock or something like that. Is that what you're? Okay. Yeah, absolutely. There's opportunities there.
Thank you so much.
Of course, thank you.
Hey, just a thought, since we're talking about waste. I know lots of times kids see something and something looks like it would be really good, and they've never tried it before, and we're trying to get some differential things there. And I know we serve a lot of the other because we know kids like it and they'll eat it, therefore, thus not having the waste. But have we thought about, and you guys might do this, do we have anything, I want to say maybe like a sample? Like if a kid's seeing something and they haven't tried it, but they're not sure they're going to like it before they actually buy the lunch, could there be a sample? Could they ask for maybe a sample of something, and then if they don't like it, they can go get something else, or if they do like it, they can get it and hopefully they'll eat it and it maybe won't be wasted.
Great idea, yeah. And easily
I just
implemented,
thought,
too. I mean, that's something.
because I mean, it's like all of us. If we see something, we don't know if we'll like it. Sometimes we order it and we hate it, but we've ordered it. So what are you going to do, right? So kids tend to be a lot more pickier. So maybe that would help entice trying some different things, and therefore getting a feel of. But sometimes it's just wanting to try it and not sure. But I don't want to. Child to feel like they want to try something, they get it. If they don't like it, then they don't have anything to eat. So that's just a thought. I didn't know if you all had done anything like that or not.
Oh, but we can, absolutely, especially with the elementary kids. I think that have a lot of value.
Yeah, I'm thinking the older kids probably kind of know more of what they like and what they don't like, but especially maybe with the younger ones too, and then maybe try to entice them to try some different things. And it's like you don't have to eat all of it, but just try it and see if you like it, and then, maybe present it that way.
Ms. Franklin.
Okay, so when we, put out the RFP to see who was going to be the best we could get to help make sure our students were getting the best they could get, the wages were a big concern for me because there seemed to be a lot of animosity among the 2 different groups, MCPS and whoever. So when you said that there was an increase to wages, so what is your wage scale?
Currently?
Compared to Montgomery County? Yeah.
I'm not familiar with Montgomery County's exact pay scale, but our minimum starting wage is $15.75, which I know is in alignment to my understanding with MCPS's.
Okay. And the wages are done on merit, or are they done as everybody gets a percentage of a raise?
In regards to going into next year for our merit increases?
That's what I'm asking. Is it merit, or everybody gets a percentage?
My mistake, I misunderstood. It would be a merit increase based on the performance reviews that we'll be running out in the month of April.
Okay. So at some point, someone could fall below what Montgomery County may be offering for wages.
Not at the minimum.
Okay.
Because again, I'm not 100% familiar with the structure that MCPS has set up for their wages for the support staff, but our minimum will always fall. So if someone's currently at $15.75, and let's say you guys went to $15.80, just as an example, we would match that no matter what, and that merit would not have an impact on that would be received, because that would be the starting wage.
So some of the concerns that I've been hearing also was the variety, switching things up, and staffing to make sure that it's equitable across the district, that no matter where our schools are at, the staffing is going to be at a level that our students are going to have the opportunity to get the same variety and offerings of foods, and that the staff is not going to be overworked trying to make that happen because there's not enough. Okay, so that's been a concern. And then, so when we talk about meals, are your numbers, as far as what you count as a meal, is it actually a meal on a tray? This is what the meal consists of, or is it a certain amount of vegetables and a certain amount of maybe snacks that will add up to a meal and are considered a meal? How is that calculated?
Good question. So how it's done pretty much at every school is the students will come through and they'll pick up their entree. The entree, 9 times out of 10, it should be 10 out of 10, but there are some instances where it's not, and it needs to be built as it goes, but it will contain 2 out of those 5 components. So I'm just gonna use a simple example, but you have a cheeseburger, you have the protein in the middle, you have your buns, there's your 2 out of 5. And then what we train our folks at the point of sale for is that every student that comes through will need to have a fruit and vegetable on their tray, right? It can get a little different, and our staff does a good job about this, but it needs to be 3 out of 5 components. So they could come through, let's say they packed their meal, and they don't want a burger, but they want a fruit and vegetable and a milk. That's still a meal, right? Because that's 3 out of 5 components, including a fruit and or vegetable, right? So our staff does a good job about this. They've been trained on this, and they're aware of it, especially at our CEP schools where that could be a practice where students want to do. Considering all the kids eat for free, they can have that kind of combination. It's not so much popular at other schools because they want the main meal. But as they come through, they get their main entree, and then the person at the register knows to make sure that fruit or vegetable with their meal at minimum.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Dr. Roundtree.
Yeah, so I had a couple questions. Thank you all for the presentation. Thank you all for serving our children food throughout the day, breakfast and lunch. So I think the program is called Global Eats at the middle school. And to the point that our students had, it sounds like there's the main line that is supposed to be kind of the American food, if you want. And then Global Eats was something to have some more diversity associated with it. There's reports that often the lines are the same. Both of them are cheeseburgers. Both of them are pizza.
Under the global? Under the global? Under the
global, yeah. Yeah. When we put out the RFP and y'all advertised to us, I got the perception, at least, I think some of my other board members did too, that there would be a pizza and burger line for that other line, and then the Global Eats line would be more diverse. I raised this issue at our Virginia School Board Association conference with one of y'all's colleagues, and the response was that, well, America is part of the globe, And while that is true, I don't think it is part of the spirit of the Global Eats line. So I'd like you to speak to that.
That's a good point, and that's something we'll have to look into, and we can double check our menu and number one, make sure that it's being followed and adhered to. I think that'd be the first step, and I think the second step would be what else do we have available that we can do there and remove that piece from that global line and focus more on the diversity piece. I immediately think of we have like there was a fried rice, a dumpling with an egg roll on there that I always go for. That's phenomenal, and it sounds like, and I agree, we need to focus on more stuff like that and get that exposure to the students.
And I have gotten a report that the fried rice and dumpling is phenomenal.
Yeah.
But that there's often pizza on that line.
Yeah, and there shouldn't be. So I think that's something that we'll have to take a look at. So I appreciate you.
I would love to hear one of my colleagues who made the comment. Anyway, certainly, but hear you loud and clear. Yeah.
Thank you.
And another item, vegetarian options. When the RFP came out, we also discussed vegetarian options and making sure that there was a vegetarian protein. There was a hearty protein to get a child through the end of the school. Reports coming back to us are that vegetarian options are often salads, fairly light vegetables, not a significant protein mixed into that vegetarian option, such as a lot of bean, a lot of tofu, tempeh, so forth. Again, I'll open it to you speaking to the vegetarian options on a day-to-day basis and keeping those as a heavier meal than just a simple salad and grain.
No, absolutely, and that's a fantastic point. I know that's something, and I had it in my notes here, that we were working on, and we implemented some new items in January, and I had a list of them that I was kind of going to go over, but we've been able to identify vegetarian, vegan, and some gluten-free options that were available, and we have them on the menu currently, I think, and we've been able to actually identify them. I think that was some of the problem too, is they may have been on there, but for a student, they're just looking at it, maybe it's glazing over or just not catching it or just not seeing it. So we went ahead and identified those pieces and put those in there. And we now have, I believe it was a vegan option for proteins. There's a crumble and the crumble would be used for spaghetti options, perhaps for salads, anything of that nature, as well as a chicken nugget that should be available.
Okay.
Yeah, we just got the new chicken nuggets, and we also got a veggie burger, and a lot of people love the veggie burger. So there are a little bit of vegetarian options available now.
And the last item that I had was just, there have been a lot of discussions of overpriced junk food. And I did see, I zoomed into the pictures and whatnot, and everything is labeled RF for reduced fat. But the meals that we're supplying our students are supposed to be these complete meals with protein, vegetable, fruit. How does it, well, one, are those same things provided as shown in the pictures at all three levels of schools, or is that just the middle school and the high school? And also, is it limited to how students can purchase those, or can they just go through the line and get 6 bags of chips and go to the table and eat chips and not get anything else?
That's a good question. So I'll address your the first part of that question. The answer is yes, it's divided up between segments, right? So K-12 has their own, or I'm sorry, K-5 has their own regulations, 6-8 has their own regulations, 9-12 has their own regulations. Quick example is 9-12, you can sell sugar-free sodas. You can't anywhere else, right? Just as an example. And then for the second part of your question is that when the students have money on their account, they are able to come through and purchase 5 chips or 2 sodas or whatever it is that they're interested in purchasing, just like you would at a store or anywhere else. Yeah.
And a quick follow-up question. In the children's accounts, is there receipts for the items that they're sold? Okay.
Yes, absolutely there is. And we also have the ability to put on a note from a parent if needed. We use that a lot for dietary restrictions and whatnot.
Okay. So you can put on a note that they're not allowed to purchase chips and protein bars and fruit roll-ups?
If that's what the parent wants to do. Okay. Absolutely, yeah.
All right, thank you.
Yep.
Ms. Rousseau.
Thank you all so much for being here tonight. Can you tell me more about what you envision for expanding summer services? What does that mean?
It's a fantastic question. And I would probably defer to Michelle Knotts on that one. I know she's working diligently on it and putting a plan together, and we should perhaps reach out to her. I think she'd have a better idea of how we're going to approach that. Yeah, it's a good question.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
I really appreciate efforts to get student feedback for diversifying your menus. I mean, we can talk about our opinions or what grievances parents happen to bring to us, but they're the ones that are eating the meals every day that I think can give you the most honest feedback. So I know that's really time consuming. So I appreciate that very much. As the parent of my daughter is a Packer, my son would routinely eat 2 entrees, especially when he was in season for his sport. And I did see it itemized on the, I can't remember what the program is where they buy lunch from, but it was all there. He thought that the lunch lady would give it to him for free, and I was like, no, we're paying for that. Don't worry, but I mean it's fine. But yeah, I don't have any other questions, so thank you.
And I don't have any questions either. I'll just share. I've got one of those picky ears myself. A dude just packed the same lunch for like 5 years in a row. I don't know how he does it. Eats the same thing every day. But back when we started with you guys, and his school board dad said, "I need you to get your butt in there and try some of that food out." As a vegetarian, his comment was the same thing. There was just some salads, right? So if we are starting to see some other vegetarian options starting to show up in the cafeterias and stuff, that would be welcome news. And I'll send him back in there again to try it out and see what he thinks about it. So, any other comments, board?
I would like to say one more thing. The flourless chocolate torte, the thing is amazing. I mean, oh my gosh. I mean, the brownie thing too, but that torte thing is unbelievable. Just so well, the mashed potatoes were good too, but I mean, so love what you put out. It's great, but the torte, that's amazing.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, that brownie thing last night almost put me in a food coma. So, yeah.
I promise I'll make this really quick. I just wanted to say thank you. I know that feeding us, who are all very opinionated, like us teenagers and kids who also have very different taste buds, it's very hard. And I know that you guys have lots of rules and regulations that you have to follow to make sure that, we have happy kids, happy stomachs, and, we're not too grumpy when we're at school, Those teachers, they have to deal with a lot already. I do want to say on the student feedback part, breakfast is a hit. I know breakfast is not really something where there needs to be a lot more variety. I think students really like breakfast. The second chance breakfast is also a good thing where if students are a bit more picky when it comes to lunch, students might grab an extra breakfast just so that they can, last throughout the day until they go home or until they can get another opportunity to go and get food. I think it's really just lunch. I know something was also mentioned to have samples for the global foods. I think that's also a very smart idea just because high schoolers can also be a bit picky, they'll tend to go for things that they do like just so that, their stomachs are happy and they're not grumpy or hungry, But yeah, I really do appreciate everything that you guys do.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
It's great feedback. Anything else, board? All right, thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next up, David Dickinson, our Administrator of Social Science and World Languages, will present an update on Black History Month for Montgomery County Public Schools.
Good evening, everyone, student leaders, members of the board, Dr. Bragan. Clicker. Yes, I'm Dave Dickinson. I'm the Administrator of Social Studies at MCPS since 1976. Who was president in 1976? Do you know?
It's Gerald Ford.
Gerald Ford, very good. Since Gerald Ford was elected, every American president has designated February as Black History Month and endorsed a specific theme. This year's theme was African Americans in labor. Across Montgomery County and all of our schools, students and teachers were engaged in meaningful activities to celebrate Black History Month and, when possible, make the connection to labor, which was a tough one this year. Our instructional staff in all of our schools work really hard to plan classroom activities and learning experiences that are supportive of Black History Month. It can be difficult to make that connection to the theme every year. Last year was a really easy one to make the connection to. This year with labor in elementary school, it was a tough one for them to work with. But it doesn't matter because they were focused on Black History Month all month long. A great example of this is Angela Johnson's fifth graders at Harding Avenue created one-pagers on a Black American of their choice. Each day of the month, teachers shared a slide that included short videos, read-alouds, and basic information on famous Black Americans. And the students' task was to create a one-page research project about an influential Black American of their choice who made significant contributions to our history. Their one-pagers were then displayed all month long at the front of the school, and they did a great job, and here's some cute pictures of them. Throughout all of our schools, though, even with the wonderful weather in February, it was evident that our kids were learning about Black history. I did not use AI on this presentation, in case you were wondering. As you can see, our teachers and school administrators dedicate time and effort to planning thoughtful lessons and activities, and it is our hope and belief that this will help to improve literacy and critical thinking by encouraging engagement with the work of Black authors like Langston Hughes. And we believe that it connects students to STEM innovations by highlighting the contributions of Black scientists, inventors, and mathematicians like Katherine Johnson. We believe it encourages artistic and musical appreciation by introducing students to influential Black artists and musicians like Elizabeth Catlett. It promotes civic engagement and leadership by teaching the importance of activism and civic responsibility. And then finally, and most important, it enhances their understanding of history and encourages critical thinking by analyzing people and events from multiple perspectives. And you have a copy of that list included in your packets, I believe. Many of our schools celebrated by including special morning announcements. There were school-wide contests or inviting special guests and speakers to schools, and I'll tell you a little bit about that in a second. These are some of the daily slides that were used for Black History Month trivia contests, and I was really excited to see these. I love how they made this relevant by focusing on really contemporary figures, and they even made a local connection by including the late, great Bill Brown. BMS invited Christiansburg Institute Incorporated to visit with all of their students during lunch to share our history of the Christiansburg Industrial Institute. The kids really seemed to enjoy that. They brought a lot of things with them, and the kids spent a lot of time talking to them and learning about Christiansburg Institute. Very, very good. And we also invited Christiansburg Institute in, which is an organization that is a steward of African-American history and culture in Southwest Virginia. We invited them to speak at all of our high schools and share the history and legacy of the Christiansburg Industrial Institute, which was the only secondary school in Montgomery County to educate Black students for 100 years, from 1866 until 1966. CI was a great local connection to the overall theme of African Americans in labor, and that was the generating idea behind bringing them in. They spoke to the 11th grade at each building. Anyway, it was great to see. It was great to have them all. And Debbie Sherman Lee, she was one of those. She's sitting in the back there, and I thank Debbie for coming. There she is. AMS invited several Black fraternities and sororities to perform a step show, talk about service. They did a question answer session for students and staff. They even played dodgeball during PE. Alpha Phi Omega, Omega Psi Phi, and Phi Beta Sigma were the fraternities that were there. Alpha Kappa Alpha, Delta Sigma Theta, and Sigma Gamma Rho were the sororities that participated. And I have to tell you that Auburn Middle School gets the unofficial, it is very unofficial, but they get the unofficial award for creativity this year. This was one of my favorite things that they did. Oops, there we go. See, AI did not do this. This was one of my favorites done by last year's staff at AMS, but it was so good, they used it again this year. The staff created, I would have showed you the whole video, but it was 11 minutes long, and we're not doing that, but I put together some clips from it so that you could see the teachers at work. But the staff created a video in which they all read a part of Martin Luther King's I Have a Dream speech, and they shared it with all the students on the first day of the month to lead off the celebration. So it was great work. Yeah, so despite the weather, we missed about half of our school days in February. The teachers had planned an awful lot. They scrambled and were able to get it done. I was very, very happy that they did, and it seemed like it was enjoyed by all. I will point out that I know it's March now. February was last month, but this is Women's History Month, so let's celebrate. Any questions?
Okay, thank you so much for that. School board, any questions or comments?
Looks very exciting. Looks like everybody had a good time learning. And I know when my son was in school, they had a Black History bowl. What did we call it, Penny? When it was one of the first years, the something bowl that they did, like the quiz bowl. Yes, and they had a ball. They had a ball doing it. So I appreciate having all those different things of learning.
Well, if you see that on the very first page of the list of activities there, the work that Auburn Middle School really, they were incredibly creative this year and had something crazy going on all month long, crazy but in a good way. So it was great.
Ms. Fudden?
So thank you for this. It's exciting to see how our kids are learning, and they're excited to learn. What I love about this more than anything is how we not only touch on the history of our famous Black Americans, but I like how we're bringing in our local Black Americans and our heroes, because it gives that connection to where they can actually talk to somebody and ask questions. So I love how we're tying that in, and I hope we can continue to see more of that implemented in, with also going back to our historical African-American figures as well. So good job all the way around.
Thank you.
Dr. Guthrie?
This is great. I'm so glad to see that you continued on with Black History Month despite everything else that's going on. Some people see this as, I don't know, DEI, but I think, Black history is American history, and I think the administration is to be commended for honoring Black History Month in this moment. Thank you.
Ms. Franklin?
So I had planned, if I told you, but then I got sick, and I missed every last one of the CI presentations and whatever.
Every day it was changed before it was over,
So, and I have to echo, in these changing times, I was very surprised to see this presentation on the agenda, and very welcomed, and hoping to help to send the message to folks that we are going to celebrate everyone. And Black history is American history. Women's history is American history. So as I was thinking about this, every month we could celebrate a different group of people and make sure our students are getting a very, very inclusive and diverse education on who helped build this country.
It really, the Christiansburg Institute connection really was perfect, because in that 100 years, education changed based on the needs of a growing economy, right? But we had all of those formerly enslaved people who couldn't read, write, or do arithmetic. And Christiansburg Institute was just one of many schools who started doing that, teaching them that way. But then Booker T. Washington came in and started preparing them for industry. And, if you know the history of Christiansburg Institute, you know that it worked with the changing economy to provide those folks with opportunities in trades and industry and go to college.
Yeah, and I'll say I could have probably helped you with the whole labor piece, but nobody asked.
I'm sure you'll be around next time.
Dr. Roundtree?
So thank you for this presentation. Very happy that we're doing this at this point in time. The first elected Black governor was in the state of Virginia in the latter part of last century. The first Black governor in the country was just after the Civil War in Louisiana, PBS pinchback. Took 100 years for there to be the second one, over 100 years for there to be the second one. We need to keep in mind the history of our Black Americans and the minorities in our country, that they've played a huge role in building this country to what it is. Also, thank you for bringing up that it is Women's History Month.
Sure.
Women have built our country too. And it is.
In case you're wondering, all teachers were supplied with resources and encouraged to celebrate Women's History Month.
Thank you. Thank you.
Ms. Purcell.
I feel like my mic is really loud tonight. I'm sorry. Thank you. I don't know that I can say anything more eloquent than my colleagues have already said. I'm just very appreciative of the engagement with the local cultural heritage group so that our students can make those ties to things that happened here, because sometimes you very much take for granted your community and are not necessarily sensitive to all the things that came before you. So I appreciate that effort very much. Thank you.
I don't have anything else to add. This is a great presentation. Thanks for being here tonight.
Thank you all. Have a great evening.
All right. Next up, Mindy Stanley, our administrative assistant to the Director of Finance, is asked to be appointed as a deputy clerk for the Montgomery County School Board. The deputy clerk shall be empowered to act in all matters in the absence or inability of the clerk to act. Do I have a motion to appoint Mindy Stanley as deputy clerk for the Montgomery County School Board? Second. Dr. Roundtree and Ms. Franklin. Any discussion? Ms. Osborne, please call the roll.
Ms. Bond?
Yes.
Ms. Franklin?
Yes.
Dr. Gitchen?
Yeah.
Ms. Parton?
Yes.
Ms. Purcell?
Yes.
Dr. Roundtree?
Yes.
Mr. Hudson?
Yes.
7 in favor.
Motion carries. All right, next up, Dr. Bragan, our superintendent, and Dr. Barbara Wickham, our assistant superintendent for curriculum and instruction, will present the division-wide plan for improving student achievement and reducing disproportionality.
Thank you, Chair Hudson. This was one of the goals that came out of our my evaluation that we completed in the goal review in December, and this was shared with the school board on February 1st, I believe, along with the reducing the disproportionality goal for behavior. So we're going to present that tonight, and Dr. Wickham, as our assistant superintendent in charge of curriculum, is going to lead it. So Dr. Wickham, when you're ready.
So during the presentation, I'll discuss how the factors that result in gaps in achievement are identified, how division and school support or improvement plans are developed and implemented, progress monitoring, and also share some resources. So starting with the big picture, all plans address these 4 areas that you see: academics, staffing, organizational learning, and school climate. Each year, we conduct a division needs assessment. Our division leadership team and strategic plan team work together to create this needs assessment. We gather data, we analyze that data, and from that, we develop problem statements. From there, we really try to dig in and conduct a root cause analysis. And then from that, these teams work to prioritize the needs and develop goals. And here I've linked in our division needs assessment. So just like our division team, every individual school, they conduct a needs assessment as well based on their individual school's data. The principal collaborates with their leadership team and their staff to conduct that needs assessment. Again, they gather data specific to their school, they develop their problem statements, and again, dig in and try to determine what's the root cause of this problem. Then they work together to prioritize those needs and develop goals. And again, I have an example linked here for you for the Shawsville Middle School needs assessment. So this is kind of a visual for this process. Some examples of data that we would look at would be different kinds of academic data, attendance data, discipline data, examples of a problem statement. So this came from one of our plans. It's been a challenge to keep students excited about coming to school. We know that chronic absenteeism has been a problem for some of our schools. So as the team started to dig in, one of the root causes, students struggling with learning disabilities or feeling overwhelmed by coursework may avoid school due to frustration or low self-esteem. Next example there. Our teachers are not collectively planning for and using evidence-based differentiation methods in SDI. So again, as the teams work together, why? What's the reason for this? They came up with due to time constraints, there's been a lack of adequate training in PD focused on these things. Every school plan must contain SMART goals for all underperforming subgroups that are identified by SOL test data. So in other words, they have to have goals that are specific, measurable, attainable, results-oriented and relevant, and then also time-bound. They can be completed by the end of the school year. So, from the needs assessment, the division develops their division support plan. The division leadership team explores, looks at different evidence-based or research-based interventions and strategies matched to the goals that were developed. The team then develops their objectives with quarterly progress measures, and then the division leadership team and the strategic plan team work together to develop action steps for achieving the plan. And again, here you have the link to the MCPS division support plan. So just like the division plan, each school uses their needs assessment and their goals then to create their comprehensive school support plan. And this is also, it used to be called school improvement plan. School leadership team then works with their principal. They explore and select their evidence-based strategies or research-based strategies matched to their goals. They develop their student and staff measures, and then they create their action steps for achieving those goals for their school. So some examples of what this looks like. So again, taken from one of our schools, here's a SMART goal. By the end of the 24-25 school year, we will reduce the failure rate for students with disabilities by at least 10%. They showed what that was, going from 47% failure rate to 42% failure rate on math SOL tests. So the question might be, why 10%? This is an acceptable improvement by the VDOE. This is the verbiage and language that they use. So reduction in failure rate by 10% is typically where goals can be written. So evidence-based strategy, you can see here, developing effective fractions instruction. So where did they get this from? Again, one of the resources that's very popular is What Works Clearinghouse. When you go into this, you can find different strategies. They're ranked based on, is there strong support for this strategy? Is there moderate support for this strategy? The student measure then would be 70% of students will demonstrate projected growth on their math assessment. Staff measure, you can see after receiving professional learning in SDI, special education teachers will demonstrate application of these strategies in instruction 70% of the time in the co-taught classroom. And then the action step that might go along with this, co-teaching teams will participate in co-teaching in SDI PD. So again, all of our schools have their school support or school improvement plan, and I won't show you all 20 of these because we might be here for a while, but we'll take a look at this one. So again, like the example that I showed you, you can see here it starts out with our academic supports. They've already conducted their needs assessment. So from that needs assessment, they've identified barriers. They've written their SMART goals. You can see here, reducing the failure rate for students with disabilities in math by 10%, for example. And then as you move down, you'll see the evidence-based strategy name. So they put the link in where this came from. Again, typically that's What Works Clearinghouse, but that's the strategy. According to them, there's strong evidence that this is effective. You've got the description of what this strategy is. And again, the team worked together, the principal and our leadership team, along with other staff members. They created their student measures For example, scoring at least 70% or higher on their common unit assessments in math. Then they have their staff measures, teachers working together at least once a month during their math PLC to determine language to focus on each unit. And typically, getting into the weeds of this, teachers would work with other grade level teachers, but to have that vertical conversation of what's the language of math that we need to use to have some consistency. So again, not to go through all of this, but you can see that depending upon the school and where their needs are, schools would have goals typically in math and reading and oftentimes science as well. So again, you see the action steps here to go along with helping to achieve those goals. Then moving into the next domain, staffing supports. So again, one of the things that they had identified was that teacher turnover at their school was at an all-time high. So their school would be fully staffed, 100% staffed for this year. As you move down, they talked about doing stay interviews and mentoring, creating those common planning times and PLCs so teachers can come together, work together, and support one another, meeting with mentors, making sure that everybody who needs one has a mentor. The next section, organizational or professional learning supports. Again, you see here they've identified the issue that they want to really tackle implementing PD. Again, they talked about some of the challenges they had, and they decided that in their goal they were going to work to differentiate their PD. So if I'm in grades K through 3, I'm the only group that's given vowels, just making sure that teachers were getting what they needed. So action steps. Again, creating a master schedule to allow for grade level common planning time. As you'll recall in our strategic plan, that was one of the things that we had discussed was really important for success. Then our last domain, school climate supports. So here they talked about reducing or making sure that there are chronically absent students that remained under 10%. They actually, the previous year, had done really well. They had one of the lowest rates in the division. So they talked about the importance of engaging qualities. We want to make our classrooms so fun. Our lessons are so awesome that our kids want to come to school. Why would I want to stay home when I'm going to get to learn about generative AI, right? So then as you move down, again, they talk about here are the things that we're going to do to make sure that we're supporting our students. Attendance plans will be created for students with 8 or more unexcused absences, conducting home visits for students who are frequently absent. So again, this is just one example. All of our schools, again, work together to create these plans. So what's the difference then for our schools that are in improvement? So all of our schools, they work together in the summer. As they come back together, the idea is to have a plan in place. This is our plan for the year based on our data from the previous year. And they submit their plans to the directors of elementary or secondary by the end of August. The difference, of course, for schools that are improvement, at some point they have to submit their plan to the VDOE for review and to receive feedback on it. All of the plans, once they're submitted, a team of people at central office will meet with the principals, review, give some feedback. One difference for those schools that are improvement, the expectation then is that the things that are in that division support plan, they also need to be reflected in the school's plan as well. And then as you move down, they've gotten their feedback, they tweak their plans, put it in front of the faculty and staff to make sure that, you know, everybody understands we're working together, we're all moving this train forward together. Then principals are asked to review these plans with their leadership teams quarterly, and then at the end of first semester to update, make adjustments as needed, link in any supporting data. Schools that are in improvement are required to meet with the division support team either quarterly or monthly, depending upon what level of improvement they're in. So here I've just linked in a variety of resources. We've got schedules of meetings, some of the tools that the VDOE provides to help us with this work, school visit agendas, strategic plan meeting agendas where we've met and we've talked about the needs of the division and how to develop a plan. So I really like this quote, but the important thing, and we talk about this with our principals as well, you know, yeah, you want to start with a plan, but the plan itself, the creation of the plan, that's not the important thing. What's really important is the implementation of the plan. Is this working? Progress monitoring. And if not, what do we need to do to go about adjusting that plan to make sure we're meeting the needs of our students? So that's, I think, the quickest look I could give you at 20 comprehensive school support plans, but happy to answer questions.
Okay, thanks so much for that presentation. School board, who has questions?
So in the plans for IEPs and 504s, I have a question, just what are the percentage of students in our county that have a learning disability and are being treated or accommodated with an IEP or 504 plan?
Oh gosh, I don't know that number off the top of my head. Dr. Walker, do you know what percent of students have an IEP?
We certainly can run that because meetings take place daily, monthly, so those numbers will change. So we can run that tomorrow and get you that information Dr. Braden can give to you guys.
Thank you.
Yeah, I guess some of the things that we have witnessed with equitable services for our students is that students aren't being identified properly, and I'd like to see some kind of plans to make sure that we identify those students properly. Our school system should be large enough that we can estimate it with national averages of how many students have learning disabilities, and if we're at 60% of that, obviously we're missing 40% of our students with disabilities. If we're at 90%, we're likely still missing 10%. If we're at 97%, we're probably doing a good job. But so that's all. Thank you for the presentation.
Change the order up here. Ms. Franklin.
So it's nice to have a plan, but unless there is some accountability, which, you know, it kind of vaguely mentions that, but where is the accountability piece and how often is that looked at?
So that's a really good question. For those schools that are in improvement, for example, we meet with those schools. For the most part, we have 4 of them that we meet with monthly. And at that time, we're looking at their data. We're looking at the student progress, where our students are. If a school's not in improvement, our directors of elementary and secondary meet with principals on a monthly basis, and that's a topic on the agenda to talk about where they are with their plans. But also, again, the expectation is that the principal is putting this back in front of their leadership team and discussing this every single quarter. And like I said, during the middle of the year, the idea is that you put this in front of your faculty and you're able to see what your progress is. And again, the directors of elementary and secondary then are following up with principals to have those conversations. And I know, again, that's one of the things that they talk about during their mid-year review with principals is their progress on their school support plan.
Okay. So during those meetings, are you looking at individual students? Are you looking at the data for the school as a whole? How does that work?
So for our quarterly meetings and our monthly meetings for those schools that are improvement, we actually have spreadsheets with every single student that's receiving an intervention where we go through and we look at the students. So for example, after MAP testing, one of the things that we did this last go around is that depending upon the student that they, or the student group that they had written goals for example, we would go in and say, so here are all the students that are identified on your spreadsheet in grade 6 that have an IEP. Let's look at every single individual student that did or did not make their growth target. And if they didn't make their growth target, did they show growth? And if not, why didn't they meet their target and why didn't they show growth? So we actually, these meetings, we go through student by student and talk about children who are and are not making the progress that they need to make to be successful and what are our next steps going to be.
And that's done with every group of students?
So that's done for the monthly meetings and the quarterly meetings for the school improvement. That's done with every student that is struggling that's on their intervention list. So if a student's been identified and they're on their watch list and they need extra support, so if I'm working below grade level, for example, I would be on that list, or maybe I've been added to that list. I started out okay, but my grades are showing I'm not doing well, then that's another student that's added to the list. So we get that granular, we dig in and we actually talk about individual students.
Okay, so if you look at our data, the disproportionality of discipline and achievement run neck and neck. Is that something that's being looked at?
Yes. So one of the things that we talk about for the past few principals meetings, one of the things that we put in front of all of our principals is that we talk about our discipline data. And that's something that Dr. Bragan has shared, like I said, monthly with principals, going through that discipline data and talking about individual students at every single school, having our principals go through. We have a new process in place where our principals are able to now more easily pull that information. We're actually excited about it because it used to be more cumbersome, but we've been able to show our principals now how they can quickly go in and pull that data to be able to look at their individual students. And you're absolutely right. When we're meeting and we're talking about these students who may be struggling, a lot of times I'm struggling academically, I'm struggling with chronic absenteeism, I'm also struggling with discipline referrals. And so, again, just making that correlation. What are we doing? We're struggling across the board and having those conversations with the right people at the table. So we have Mr. Howard who participates in our meetings. We have Ms. Woodsetzer who participates, Dr. Walker, staff members. So we try to make sure we have the right people at the table so everybody's asking the questions about the whole child.
Okay, I'll stop for now.
Dr. Bragan, I realize I just kind of jumped right into board questions. Did you have anything you wanted to add into this?
No, obviously, it's something that we've been focusing on all year. I appreciate that, though, Chair Hudson. You know, one of the things that was our focus with our administrators, and anyone in the room could tell you this from when we met in last July, was we had three things we wanted to focus on. And the three things were increasing student achievement for all students, decrease in disproportionality for discipline referrals for all groups, and holding people accountable. And that's been a focus at every meeting, everything we talk about, every initiative that comes across us. And the proof will be in the pudding. You know, our expectation is that our principals are going to move their buildings forward for all the things that we mentioned, all the things that we put together, and that they're going to have that same expectation for their staff. And if they're not, they're going to be put on a plan or they're going to be showed the door. That's the accountability that's been lacking here that I've seen. So.
All right, right on. Dr. Guitry.
Thank you so much for the presentation, for all the information. One of the things I couldn't quite tell as I was going through this is what is new that you're doing versus what you've been doing, because some of what you went through, I was like, it sounds like this is what the division has been doing all along. Can you help me understand a little better, like, okay, so these are the things we've done in the past, but here are some of the new things that we are doing to move us forward?
I think that, one, the VDOE created these new templates. Year before last, we used a different template. Well, they created whole new templates. And the purpose of the revised templates was really to walk us through, and everybody across the state, just to do a better job with the needs assessment. And I think one of the pieces that a couple of things that we weren't doing that this has been helpful with. We've analyzed the data and we've talked about the things that we want to do, but we didn't really necessarily always get down to, well, what's the root cause? And you can keep going and keep digging deeper. So why aren't children coming to school? Let's talk about that. Let's figure out what's the why. That's one piece, is really trying to identify the why behind it. The other piece is just this idea of selecting evidence-based or research-based strategies and looking at, what truly has been proven to work. And, for schools that are improvement, for example, they're expected to pick things that have strong evidence of success. So that's something that's been completely new for our principals.
Okay, great. I just have a couple other questions. One is, I think I located it. A lot of the presentation has been on school-based, and one of the things that I have asked about, and I think I'm the only person, is division-wide SMART goals. Is that on the Virginia's division support plan? Is that document there? Because I went through it and I was like, I think this is where it is. It's very much like a template.
It's this one, the MCPS Division Support Plan.
Yeah. It would be a lot to go through it. Is there anything you want to draw our attention to, just so we have like the division-wide perspective above the schools? I mean, I know I'm putting you on the spot right here, but as I was going through this, I was like, I think I found it. So, oh wow, there's a lot here.
If I had to simplify it and say the one thing that comes to mind over and over again is just how poorly our students with disabilities are doing year after year. And, some of our student groups are up and down, above state average, below state average. And I think the thing that we really have honed in on is that our students with disabilities have consistently been below state average.
Right.
So that's not the only thing that you'll see, but that is a big piece of it that, that we talk about in here and the things that we can do. Obviously, there are different parts to it. Chronic absenteeism is something that we address as well, but certainly those things that we need to do to support our students with disabilities. And also with the Virginia Literacy Act, you'll find pieces in here about our adoption of high-quality instructional materials and just making sure that we're using rigorous materials with all of our students.
Okay, great. And one of the reasons I asked is just so that we don't send the message that accountability is only for schools, but for the division's leadership, from top to bottom. So I thank you for this. It's going to take a while to go through all of it. One final question. So I know that we have some schools on plans. What are we doing to reward school leadership for exceeding expectations? Do we do any? As I was going through this, I was like, okay, I could tell like the accountability, discipline, people who were below. For our administrators who are exceeding expectations, or if we want to encourage them to exceed expectations, because when one school rises, it brings others up. So how do we reward schools for overperforming?
That's a really good question, and I think we can do a better job of that. I know, of course, the VDOE, they have their recognitions for schools, and I forget how many it is across the state, but the big exemplar awards, for example, we also try to recognize principals in different ways, things that they've been very effective at, and you see it in their data. They're given the opportunity to share and present with their peers, and while that's not necessarily something for the whole entire school, I do think that our principals who are doing a good job, and you see in their data that their children are really being successful, that is a way that some of our principals feel rewarded, but I certainly think we can do a better job at that.
Okay, thank you very much.
Ms. Pardon?
Dr. Wickham, thank you so much. I'm actually really glad to see this finally coming to fruition, and I do want to thank the VDOE for their guidance, because they have provided us with a much-needed tool and kind of somewhere to begin to start to plan on how we're going to try to fix this problem. And I wasn't able to look at all of the plans, but I did look at about 3 or 4, and the plans are extensive. So they had to sit down and really go through, and it's very individualized by school and what they see, just like all of our 4 districts are very individualized with different things going on in different areas. So I was glad to see, and I was trying to look at ones from different districts just to kind of see the comparison. And I was very pleased to see what had come together on each of the different districts and kind of get an idea of where some problems are with each one. So I was glad to see us getting started on that. And I am happy to hear about we are being more proactive on the accountability piece because that's a huge part of it. And I think, I don't necessarily want to say that we're dropping the ball on accountability, but I don't know if we have technically been pushed to make that as important as it should be. We have great staff, we had great administrators and great teachers. Maybe we just needed some more guidance on what we needed to be looking at and how we should be looking to improve. So I was glad to see that guidance there. I also think, especially with our disability children and our students, that sometimes, from what I have seen in the past and recently, I've had some students sitting in front of me, and I've often looked at the writing and how it's written, what it looks like, verbiage used, and I'm looking at what grade this child is in, and I'm thinking to myself, something's not right here. And I'm thinking, how did this child get from this to where they're at now and it not be noticed? So I'm really getting excited to hear that maybe we can stop that, because we're not helping that child. And by continuing to move that child forward when there's apparently a problem there, and if I'm sitting there noticing it and what I'm reading from something they've written, or where I feel like I've seen other children of that age or that grade be at compared to what I'm seeing from this child. And sometimes I've heard that our families have been in touch with issues they've had and tried to get help. And I've heard maybe sometimes we've kind of not provided what we've needed there. So maybe we can have our staff listen more, even sometimes if they're not seeing that there might need to be a need, but the parents know there's a need, and we can kind of come together with them and work that out with them. But our teachers are huge in this, because they're the ones in the classroom with them all day long, and they're seeing things that sometimes even the parents don't realize. And a lot of our kids really trust our teachers and talk to our teachers, and so they know things that a lot of other people don't. So we can definitely start getting the support there, but and it's not just our disability children, it's all of our children, because I think I stated several months ago, I don't remember exactly what meeting it was, I had brought to the attention of the state averages and how we were below, and it wasn't just with our children of disabilities, it wasn't just with our African American children or our Asian children, but we were dropping in every level. So to hopefully see we can help everyone be better and us do better, I'm excited about this plan. So sounds good. Thank you.
Ms. Bond?
I'm good, thank you.
Ms. Purcell?
The division needs assessment, is that a self-assessment or does that come from the BDOE?
So the division needs assessment, our leadership team works together with our strategic plan team to do that needs assessment.
Thank you. I was really glad to see how, you're looking at so many different aspects of how a child can be successful in identifying, like absenteeism and achievement. And I could very much relate to that kind of Sunday scaries that you were explaining, like, oh, I'm not doing so great. I feel behind from everybody who's next to me. I don't really want to be there, so I don't show up, and then, that compounds. So what are you doing to address those situations? Because it is a big problem.
Yeah, so of course at the high school level, that's where we see the biggest problem, because now once I'm driving, and if my parents are already at work in the morning or they work late and they're not up yet, I may choose not to drive myself to school. I may, just stay at home. So high school has been the toughest place to tackle it, but we've tried multiple things. Again, one of the things that we've talked about is the importance of knowing your students, One school, it's called a dot activity. They put every single student up and they ask faculty members what they know about the children. And they work to identify those students that nobody really seems to know a whole lot about. And those kiddos don't have a relationship with somebody. So then making sure that they match somebody on staff with those students. Because, every kid wants to feel like somebody cares about them. So trying to make sure that we're finding those students. One of the things that I talked about was doing home visits. We had one school, for example, they took their chronic absenteeism list from last year and they went out and did home visits with every single family of those students to meet with them and just encourage the parents to get those kiddos to come to school. We've piloted a new program that actually sends out our letters for us. And, some of the feedback, it is a little bit aggressive because, you get that letter when your child's not coming to school and it's telling you, hey, set up that conference. And so that seems to, based on the data that we just saw earlier this week, seems to had some impact there. So just a whole variety of things. Again, one of the most important things that we can do is just make school a place where kids want to be. Like if I get to choose between staying at home and coming to school, making it that place where, yeah, I want to get up and I want to go to school today. This is important.
Thank you so much. What especially resonated with me from what you said was just that developing relationships, because as I understand, sometimes that's one of the greatest indicators of student success is just having a connection with your teacher that opens up learning so much more when you've built that relationship. I had one other question that also comes from the needs assessment. It says that the number of teachers with less than 3 years of experience is 188. So that would be about 20% of the MCPS faculty. Is that
ballpark?
That seems really high, and I understand we are just an example of a whole national issue that we're not going to solve, but we have to solve it for the kids that we're responsible for in Montgomery County. I was really also glad to see that emphasis on collaborative planning, because I know that really contributes to student success. But just what are some other things that you're doing to mentor these teachers, help, I've been in my job for 7 years, and I'm a much better teacher than I was when I started. So what are some other strategies that you're doing to help mentor these new teachers and retain them?
How long do you have? All right, so we have a robust mentoring program in place. So every single school has a lead mentor. And then every teacher that's new to the school is assigned a mentor. So the lead mentor works with our mentor coordinator. We have a monthly checklist of things. Here are the things that are coming up that you need to be prepared for. So for example, one of the things that we see with some of our young teachers, they are very uncomfortable with parent-teacher conferences, just sitting down and having to talk to, that parent. So then the lead mentor will train the mentors on, hey, here's some things that we need to do with our new teachers to get them prepared for parent-teacher conferences in October, for example. So just going through and having those constant meetings between the lead and the mentor who then works with the new teacher or mentee to make sure they're prepared for those different things that are coming up. How do I set up my grade book? How do I make sure I'm prepared for SOL testing? All the big things that are coming your way. It's on this checklist, like I said, each month, and we provide that support for our mentors who are then working with those teachers. And also in the very beginning, as we're hiring people, we ask principals, like as soon as you have a new hire, we start in June, go ahead and assign a mentor, because as much as possible, we ask that if they can, to go out, take that person to lunch, start building that relationship, because when you ask people what really makes them stay, it's that relationship that they have with somebody. So just working early on to build that relationship to make that person feel welcome in their new school.
Thank you.
I didn't have any specific questions that hadn't already been answered, but I'll definitely say I really appreciate this presentation, and in particular, all the links out to the plans, both a division and the schools. You know, we talk about accountability a lot, but a big part of accountability is transparency, right? So not only for us, but, you know, in the community as well, being able to see these plans and understand what's going on. Yeah, I appreciate the superintendent's comments about, you know, accountability and, you know, we're going to do this or else, right? Kind of that's important. But I also really appreciate the comment about let's also reward, you know, schools, administrations who are going above and beyond on this stuff, because the same people that are responsible for this are the same ones responsible for the discipline kinds of stuff and the drugs and all the other things that we deal with, right? So it's a lot that they're trying to juggle, right? So, you know, when they're doing a great job at it, we should definitely let them know it. Board, any other questions or comments?
Yeah, I have one more.
Sure.
So when the team gets together and they're looking at students and what we can do to help and support them, are we asking the student?
So unfortunately, when we're meeting with our principals, the school board office team's not asking the student. Our hope, of course, and that's one of the things we need to revisit, is that our school teams are meeting with students. So for example, one of the things that CMS had started last year was having those meetings, bringing the student in with a team like a guidance counselor, a couple of teachers, an administrator, and talk about, so here are your grades. This is how many days you've missed. What's going on? What kind of plan can we develop to help you be successful for the remainder of the year? But I do think that's something we need to revisit with all of our schools. Is a really good strategy, talking to the students. What do you see? What's going on?
Okay. Well, if you were to bring me in with a room full of adults and ask me what's going on, I probably won't say a whole lot. Well, I might, but other students, most students would not. And a lot of that is because they don't feel like they've been heard in the past. So for them, the truth is in the pudding, whatever, you know what I mean? For them to be able to trust and be able to have that communication as to what they need to help them do better, which helps us all do better.
On a singular level, we have encouraged our schools to really think about assigning mentors to students that are struggling and picking that one person that they've been successful with or that they feel comfortable with. Maybe I'm in 10th grade and there's not a single teacher in 10th grade that I have that relationship with, but there was one in 9th grade that I really felt comfortable with, and trying to look at the students who really need that extra support and giving them that mentor, because all the research shows children who are struggling, if they have that adult who helps to make a difference in their life, it really can help them turn things around.
Great, board. Anything else? All right, thank you so much. All right. Next up, the administration will present an update and discussion regarding the FY 25-26 operating budget.
You can pull that one up, right? You go right on to the next one. All right, thank you, Chair Hudson, and I appreciate you guys coming up. Thank you, Trevor and Angela. You know, we had the joint board meeting last night where we talked to some of the budgetary things, and we had gone to the Board of Supervisors meeting when they went over what their budget was going to be. And there were a couple things that I wanted to make sure we shared at this meeting that we touched on yesterday, and I sent some of those through an email. There were some changes in the calculation tool that worked to our advantage and gave us some more monies from the state than we had anticipated. And when we go to the slide that shows all that, we'll show that to you. But, you know, it's about $1 million more. And there was some more money that was also put into the school nutrition fund. And, you know, those were some of the numbers that the county used yet last night to say that we're at 50% of the monies. Well, it's 50% counting the additional state monies. And I think some of us had pointed that out as well, right? So we did get more monies from the state than we had anticipated, which would mean we would request less from the Board of Supervisors to meet what our initial goal was. However, if you go on the next slide. So this was our final ask and I apologize because it looks a little blurry. Those aren't my glasses, right? Can't tell when you get to 60. But anyway, this is our budget. This is what we're asking for. These are the increases and the things that we wanted to, obviously, anything that's been previously in the budget is already in there, and that's expected to maintain it. And then any increases in what we want to account for are listed there, and it comes out to about $7.7 million in an increase, which would bring the total budget to $154 million approximately, as you see in the middle of the page there. Further on down are where the revenues are. And that was the change in the calc tool. That was at 81 and change, and it's 82,447,000, which would be our state aid anticipated for next year. Our federal is about the same, 5.2 million approximately, minimal with the local revenue, and that would mean that the county revenue we have there is 61, is what we got this year, 61 million. So that would mean we have a deficit of the 4.4 million. Right, that we would ask the county for. And then we add the school nutrition budget, which isn't part of the operating budget, which would be different if we wanted to pay for all the school lunches, and that comes out to that 1.2 and change on the bottom. So our ask for the county was to make sure we can meet this budget need that we have listed here was $5.6 million. Go to the next slide. The county's budget, as it's presented, and now it hasn't been voted on, and they haven't determined an actual tax rate, so anything could change. I don't anticipate it going up, though, was that in their budget, and because of the budgetary constraints that the county needed for some of the fire stuff that's going on down in Charlottesville and Elliston, was going to be an increase of $2.7 million. We're asking for 5.6, so that means we get a deficit of 2.9 in what we've asked for, okay? Does that make sense? Next slide, please. So what does that mean? So on that initial slide, we had all the things that we were asking to increase. So what we listed here, I apologize, is those are the personnel. The administrator of fine arts position we talked about since I've been here. We talked about the need for the additional special education teachers and paraprofessional support. The gifted teacher, the ELL teacher. We talked about additional nurses. We talked about the need for the 504 coordinators and additional custodians. And the reduction of the 4 teachers is we probably, due to our reducing slowly declined numbers in elementary, we could probably get away with that, and that's why we put that as a negative there. So that's where that 360 comes from. And tonight's presentation is just to share with all of you, to digest it, to think about it, so when we meet again, when we say, okay, we have to find that 2.9 million, where do y'all think would be best for us to do that, okay? So these are the additional personnel that we have included in this budget. And these are the programs. All right, the first one is the salary enhancement of 3% raise. I don't think we can touch that because that's tied to the state monies, and that's what the county has agreed to go up. All their employers are going up 3% as well. And our monies from the state for the SOQ positions are tied to us giving that 3% raise. So if we cut that, that would reduce some of our state aid monies. The minimum wage increase is the number we put in there to get everybody up to that $16 an hour. The 2 salary guide adjustments, one for the teachers and the classified staff, you see what those numbers are there. The school board salary increase, which you haven't had in a very long time. The school security officer program is there, dual language immersion program. The additional instructional needs, and if at some point y'all want us to break that down, that comes up to, technology and different support supplies and things like that we can go over individually if you have a question on that. Additional PD, and then the bottom one is the free lunch and breakfast from the S&P increase of 1.2 million. So the idea tonight was just to share that with all of you and share those numbers. I know we touched on it a little bit last night on what that amount was, but I think when we come back with our final budget, unless the county comes up with something different, they're going to give us a $2.7 million increase, and we have that $2.9 million deficit that we have to figure out how we want to do that. I'm open for any questions, thoughts.
Thanks for that presentation.
Well, I would like to see a breakdown of the additional instruction needs.
Okay.
And a breakdown on the breakfast and the lunch. Because quite frankly, listening to our students tonight gave me a better perspective of if we can't do both, even at the state level, then which one is going to be more beneficial? And from listening to our students, it sounds like the breakfast is going to be the most beneficial if we have to cut something somewhere and it comes down to that. So I'd like to see those two broken down.
I have that spreadsheet. I'll share it with you as we talk right now.
Okay.
I don't have the breakfast and lunch. I need that from y'all.
We can get that.
We'll go around. Dr. Roundtree?
Yeah, so getting a finer breakdown would be very beneficial so that we can start trimming. Also, there's lots of people that like to say that there's a lot of waste in our school systems. I'd like them to go and tell the teacher that's spending money on school supplies that there's a lot of waste in our school systems. And to our community and our teachers and everybody else out there, if you like the budget that we put forth, show up at the Board of Supervisors meeting and tell them that you like the budget that we put forth. They have, of the increased revenue that the county is receiving, they are providing us approximately 30% of that increased revenue. We are just a little bit over 50% of the budget today for the county, for the school. So one would commonly think that of the increased revenue, the school system would get about half and the county would get about half. But they're giving us 30% and they're taking 70. They're giving us a $2.75 million increase on about $70 million. So with that, we'll do what we have to do when we're given the amount of money that we receive. We're not able to generate revenue. That's the Board of Supervisors' job. And the Board of Supervisors tells us how much we get to spend. That's it for me.
Ms. Purcell?
I wonder if it makes sense to have a special meeting dedicated to making budget decisions in April. I know that we had a lot of things already kind of in the wings for our scheduled April meetings. If that might make something a little less long. That's my only thought. I don't know if I need to make a motion or we need a thumbs up on that or what.
Yeah, let's let everybody go around and kind of share their thoughts, and then we'll come back and kind of give a thumbs up on that if we want to pursue that or not. Ms. Vaughn?
Well, in order to find $3 million, it's going to have to be the big budget items. I mean, you can hassle it all around all you want, but it's got to be the big ones. So when we're all ready to discuss it, then we'll just have to throw it out there.
Ms. Pardon?
I agree with Ms. Bond. I'm sitting here now trying to figure stuff up, and I have had people share with me thoughts on some things about the budget on both sides. So if time would permit, it might not help for us to get together and put our minds together and try to see what we could, or what the majority of the board thinks might be the best things for us to eliminate should we not get what we are requesting. Again, in a perfect world, we would get everything we've asked. I don't know if we've ever gotten everything that we have wanted in a budget since I've been on the board. So we've always had to make cuts somewhere. So that's where I'm at.
Dr. Kitri?
Okay, so I think I'm a little confused, because we just had a conversation yesterday, and when I was looking again at the sheets, so we saw their proposed budget from the Board of Supervisors, and the third slide included school operations just over 6 million, the 49%. And then there's the undesignated proposed and designated proposed. Is that where you're getting the 2.75 million increase? Like, where did that number just come from? Or where did it come from?
I don't have last night's in front of me, but it came from their presentation on February 24th, where they presented their budget for the county.
Yeah.
I don't have that in front of me, so I can't speak intelligently from it, but I could pull it up while we're talking. But that's the number. I'm confident that what the increase they would allow us from their increase in revenues is $2.75 million.
Okay. I didn't glean that from our conversation yesterday, that I thought there was going to be some back and forth, and there was a lot of emphasis on the school lunch, breakfast and lunches, and I knew there was pushback on that, but this goes well beyond. I mean, I'm just going to be on record saying I'm incredibly disappointed in the Board of Supervisors. I know that they have needs. If you've got needs, you need to find revenues for them. And for us to have had that conversation, and for it not to be an honest negotiation, I shouldn't say not an honest negotiation, but to focus so much on the one program without saying to us, by the way, you're going to have to cut $3 million from your request, like half of your request, then I think it could have been it would have been a different conversation. If the county has the needs, find the revenue, rather than cutting back on the school division and being like, okay, we're going to take care of ourselves as a county, but you deal with you're going to have to deal with the imbalance and allocation and just cut from programming. So this goes well beyond that conversation we had yesterday about offering free meals for our students. So I'm just going to be on record that I'm really disappointed in our Board of Supervisors at the moment. If you have to make those allocations, if it's incumbent upon them to deal with EMS, then find the revenues. Maybe you should consider increasing taxes if this is something you must do. I know that we need to have a conversation about cutting. I know we're not going to get what we need, but that is a significant difference from our request. And so I think that there should be more of a negotiation with the Board of Supervisors, and that we should go back to the table with them.
Yeah, unfortunately, they hold the strings. We don't get to negotiate with them. Just to go through these budget considerations, if you could go back a couple one slide, I guess. We got to cut $3 million. S&P, free lunch, free breakfast, might be able to pull off breakfast when we start cutting on here, but we're not going to be able to pull off both of those. The next small items, because I'm pretty sure that we're not going to hit salary enhancement of 3%, but we may actually have to get to that. Our dual language program, additional instructional needs, SSO program, that only gets us up. If we cut all of the meals at no cost, that only gets us up to $2 million. Now we're getting rid of our compression scales. The only thing that we can take on this list is our 3% rate. And attract talent to our school, into our school district, or to attract residents into our county. To be an innovative school district that thinks beyond, that takes care of our teachers, that feeds our students, that teaches multiple languages. Show up at the Board of Supervisors visits. Teachers too, because we can't compress these salaries. Everybody. Make them go till midnight at their next meeting.
I think we've gone around, haven't we? Started there, I think, yep. Yeah, I guess I would just say that I found the presentation last night to be a little bit confusing myself. I got bad eyesight, so I couldn't exactly see all the numbers on the screen, which is why I asked Dr. Bragan, I think at one point, to kind of explain the difference between what you were presenting and what they had presented, because that number, that gap wasn't identified anywhere, right? So I remember you saying that, but there wasn't much of a discussion afterwards, right? We kind of pivoted into the lunch discussion, and we never really kind of got back to that. So, but yeah, I mean, other than complaining, the only thing that we can really do is advocate for the community to show up, and like that's who the Board of Supervisors listens to. It's not us. So talk to your constituents and get them to come out and advocate for us. Any other comments? Appreciate the presentation of information tonight, for sure. Yeah.
So do we want a
You're right,
standalone
yes,
meeting
absolutely right.
to deal with the budget, or roll it into our 2 April meetings?
So can we talk about timeline a little bit in terms of when, I mean, theoretically, any decisions we make now are premature until we know exactly what they're going to do. We can preemptively have some thoughts around what we might choose to cut if they stick with their budget, but something could happen. Maybe the county shows up in a show of strength and support, and minds get changed. I don't know. So in terms of the timelines, when do we need to have our final budget approved?
Well, they're going to advertise the tax rate on March 24th. April 10th is the public hearing on the budget and the tax rate. And then April 21st is the special meeting to adopt the budget and the tax rate.
Okay.
So whatever we do would have to be before they adopt the final rate. Again, I don't know if they would change, but that's their schedule. They provided last night from the county government.
So if anyone wants to show up, April 10th is the time to do it. Is that correct?
Public hearing.
Yep.
March 24th is the advertised tax rate and budget. You can discuss it at that point, too. That will be the advertised, when they pick what the advertised tax rate is going to be.
Okay.
We have to show up at March 24th.
March 24th. Okay.
Because you have to get the tax, if they're not going to cut their budget, want to fund us at a reasonable amount, then the tax.
So what I heard, I think, was they can't go above the advertised rate. So that's when they're going to determine what the advertised rate is. So it would be the 24th, which is next Monday, I believe, right?
Okay. So then I guess back to Ms. Purcell's question then, is there value in us trying to do a special session in between our normal sessions in order to kind of work through some of this stuff?
Before that?
Yeah.
I don't know what that would achieve. Because they're not going to talk before that.
Okay.
That's my thought. I mean,
Yeah, I would think that.
After we find out what we're going to get, yeah. Well, when do we have to decide on our budget so that contracts can go out?
Yeah.
I mean, we want to do that early as we can, but I think last year was the first meeting in May or last one in April. It was late last year because we get a little bit of a cut last year too, if you remember. Right.
Mm-hmm.
It was actually the second meeting in April.
It was the second meeting in April
In May.
last year.
Yeah, it was late.
And I believe right now there's a meeting on April the 22nd that we penciled in as a special meeting. It was supposed to be to have a special hearing, the public hearing on the budget, but the timeline has kind of shifted a little bit, with meeting with the county and such. So that's still there, the 21st, you would have the county's approved budget. So if you wanted to keep the 22nd, that might be a possibility for this board to discuss it after that. And then you would be able on the first May meeting to establish the budget and do the advertisement. You have the public hearing that last meeting in May and make a decision on it.
Yeah, that makes sense. There's an extra Tuesday in April, so. Okay. Okay. Yeah, let's maybe pencil that in, and we can decide as we get a little bit more closer to it if.
So April 22nd?
I think so. And it doesn't have to be 22nd, it could be, I guess, the 29th, that still gets us before our next meeting, but.
I think we tentatively scheduled that one.
Okay.
Like on the calendar we approved, right?
You tentatively scheduled every Tuesday.
No.
No, we backed away from that.
We didn't.
We kept that one as a budget meeting, I'm
Right.
pretty sure.
Okay. Great. April 22nd.
April 22nd.
Yeah, we do.
So our minds will be fresh and still on track to
There
get
you go.
work done. Yeah.
Board, anything else? Okay, great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
No more enjoyable conversations and budgets and calendars. All right, board, are there any items of unfinished business? Sorry, I want to get that on my calendar here.
I guess still want to know when the hate speech, when we're going to get an update on the plan and implementation.
We'll have that at the next school board meeting, April 1st. I think that's the next meeting, right? April 1st?
Right.
And Dr. Bregan, I also had a question. When is the updated code of conduct? When would that be something that we would see?
Should be coming soon, too. We'll try to do that, if I can get that done then, too.
And I think I brought up the strategic plans for the strategic plan. It's coming up.
I know Ms. Purcell had mentioned something about that, too.
I was going to say that in new business, but should we do it in old business? Can we get a strategy from the division for addressing, updating the strategic plan, just so that we can ensure that it's thoughtful, comprehensive, and inclusive? I wasn't even sure, kind of, when do you start doing data collection? When does the new plan get rolled in with the old one expiring in 2026, that kind of information?
Well, the last strategic planning that we did was different than strategic planning than we had done before. It was very inclusive of folks across the district and community, which I thought was wonderful. All kinds of different perspectives and input, and a lot of people in the room learning a whole lot about other areas of the district, even though they may have been here for years. So how we're planning to create the strategic plan is what I'm looking for.
We need a plan for the plan.
Right.
Yeah, that's, and I know you mentioned that a meeting or two ago, Ms. Franklin, and Ms. Purcell mentioned it too. And actually, the company, I don't know the name, that did our strategic plan the last time, reached out to me about, hey, do you want to start talking about, the update and revising it? I'm fine with doing all that, but I don't want to do anything without your direction as a school board, how you want me to handle that. Do you want me to contact that company and get an idea, have them come in and talk? Here's what our plan would be, is a potential presentation on how we move forward. I'm hesitant to do that on my own or come up with a plan. I'd like you all to tell me, how do we start the plan? And I agree, the more people in the community we get involved, the better plan it is. But can I get some direction from all of you? And what do you want me to do, like next steps?
I believe the last process was very successful. But there's 3 of us, I think, that were on the board at that time. So it'd be good for the rest of the board to understand how that process worked.
Yeah, I wasn't here for that either.
So it was very successful, and I was really amazed by the turnout that we had from the community, and we did have a lot of voices that shared their thoughts and opinions. I'm not going to lie, it was very time-consuming, and people did what they could. Some people had to work, others had more time to devote to it. So you were able to come, and I believe Penny and Jamie, weren't we put on certain? We chose certain committees to kind of. We broke off into committees that were deemed as what we wanted to work on in our strategic plan, and then each committee met. And then we all came back together at different stages and talked about, and then we ended up in the finalizing stage. Each committee had like a top 3 or top 5, I think it was top 3 priority. And then we went from there, and so we knew we couldn't do all of them at once. So I think the first strategic plan was a 5 plan, stage plan. And then we knew we would start with those, and we would come back to the others possibly later and implement what we weren't able to, because we couldn't implement everything at the same time. So we kind of prioritized what we thought our needs were.
You know, what we were doing and what.
But it started with a huge planning committee from folks across, like I said, from everywhere, coming up, listening to the information, the data, what was happening in the district, where the district wanted to go, and then start prioritizing. And then we came up with, I think it was 5, equity, instruction, facilities, poverty, and mental health, I think were the 5. Now that were then broken down to subgroups, and then folks were pulled in to work on those goals and the outcomes and implementations. That was very, very involved, and as Dana said, time-consuming, but well worth the effort.
Would it be worthwhile for me to contact that company, see if they can do a presentation on April 1st on what the process potentially would look like, and if y'all are interested in moving forward that way?
I think so. That's who we used before. Yeah. It seems like a bigger endeavor than we could hope to achieve on our own, so. But
Wait, just to clarify, so it was the company that led all of this. Was there a director of it or somebody? The company was, or was there somebody in MCPS that?
And I'm sure they're using all the data from the division is what drives, right, the plan and stuff, and where the needs are and what the people say, and we get the information from the community, I'm guessing.
So
Your mic's off, Penny.
I think it was Cumberland or something like that was the name of the organization. And Wayne Harris, former superintendent in Salem, and I can't remember the other gentleman's name, but he was actually served as interim superintendent between Blackburn and Meyer, were the facilitators of the process. And I can't remember who was the lead in the district. I can't remember. Do you remember? Barbara, were you here? I'm thinking. That's Lois Graham, right.
I think she was hipping or plopping or one or the other, but she was working with us and helping to
Right.
facilitate the work.
Right.
And how much what was the cost for that? Because we're now going to have to think about the cost of this, and that might be, can we get the cost for using that?
I can get all that information.
Yeah.
I'll find out. They've contacted me, so I could find out who the contact people are. And, we'll see what we can do if I can get them to do a presentation on the 1st. Does that make sense? Start the ball rolling, because I would imagine it'll probably take us a year to develop the plan, so it'll be ready to be implemented 26.
Well, COVID came in right as we were finishing things up and everything shut down. So that kind of delayed the process some, because it took months before us to get back together. Right. But anyway, so it was 3 days of intense work, and then coming back together to finalize some stuff that took a few months to get us back together, but it moves faster than you think.
Okay.
Yeah.
Board, any other items of unfinished business?
Yeah, so the Board of Supervisors last night was making it clear that they needed some numbers on how much we want to spend for building improvements over the next decade-ish. I don't know if we can decide to, or the administration can decide to send them a number, but I mean, the mean of projects that were proposed by the architects is something like $25 million apiece. We have 5 of them. How often do we want to do it? They wouldn't tell us how often they could distribute funds, so we got to give them a number so that they can then plan. So I would suggest something on the order of every 12 to 18 months, we want to have one capital project that's $25 million, probably closer to the 18-month mark than the 12-month. But that gives them something to plan their bonds with. The fact that they can't tell us when they can issue $25 million next and when they can issue a second $25 million, because we're beholden to their issuing of bonds, just like other aspects of funding school systems, is kind of very questionable. In our meetings, we've given the basics of how much these 5 projects are going to cost. They're going to be $20 to $30 million a piece. Take the mean, 25. Tell us when they can issue bonds. But I think it's a simple email.
Well, I'll ask.
It's really not that simple. I'm
I'll
sorry.
ask the board's.
It's not. It's really not.
Well, the board's position is, because what I said last night I think is a good idea, but I'll take direction from all of you, is that on April 1st, the architect and I are going to share with all of you what those plans would be. And there's a couple of choices in there that then we will talk about on the April, was it the next meeting, 18th, whenever our second meeting is. Because I think there's a decision or two that, as a school board, you got to make before we decide what we want to do. And we have some ideas that we want to put forth and what we think would be appropriate to meet our growth and all that, although throw into this other thing that just came on the plan for potential development down there in Charlesville that could be, different. I know they're talking about that tomorrow. We weren't initially planning on that, right? That wasn't part of what our discussion was. But, I had a really great conversation with our central office team and with the architect that we can get something to all of you on April 1st to digest, to look it over, that we could then come to a consensus at that next meeting in April and say, hey, Board of Supervisors, here's what the school board decided. Here's what we want to do. Here's how long it's going to take. Here's our priorities. Get the money, if that makes sense.
Yep.
Yeah, because
One of the things that we agreed on is that they were going to have their list of what they needed to do and have all that lined out by June the 1st. And then after that, we get together and list everything everybody has, have Davenport there to help lay out where debt service is at, when they're able to borrow money, and then you get a better picture of where things are at.
No.
Yeah, 'cause
And I
if
think
we
that
mess-
timeline that Dr. Bragan lays out absolutely supports that. We can have our plan in April, they'll get theirs in June, and we get together and work it out.
Because they have to make sure they don't mess up that bond rating. I mean, we can't, if we do, then we can't, it affects our borrowing effect for years if we mess that up. So it's been this way forever. It just, you can't just jump in and go, oh, okay, well, let's get this kind of money. That's not the way it works at all.
The estimate.
Hasn't happened with any of them over the years, that none of them can do it.
It's clear that they can't mess up their bond rating, that they have to issue debt, and they have to talk to Davenport about it. The statements that we haven't provided them anything, I don't know, maybe we haven't provided them the architecture plans and whatnot.
We haven't. Not formally, right? Yeah.
But we haven't agreed on it yet.
Right,
We haven't agreed on it. To say that, oh, well, each school's going to get 25 million, I mean, we didn't do that at any of the other areas where it's not fair to do it to this one. I mean, we've got choices we have to choose, and we haven't done that yet. And it's just like what Ms. Franklin was talking about. We used to have a chart that had what their needs and ours and how we would work it out through the years. And that's just not something that's happened in the latter years. So we've got to get back on track with doing that. And I think that's what they were more talking about is, okay, we need your stuff. We'll put your stuff together. We'll look at our bond rating, see what Davenport says, and how much money we can get and how often we can get it. Christiansburg was supposed to be done years ago.
There's at
and
least one-
couldn't because we didn't have the fund issuing.
There was at least one supervisor that asked directly for us to say, we want to build a school that cost about this much at this point in time. We want to build another one at this point in time. We want to build another one at this point in time. So if that wasn't what was said, which, or,
As to what the county's needs are, what the school district needs are, which we haven't prioritized yet, then everybody gets to hear when there can be bonds issued. There is a ceiling that the supervisors do not cross. I mean, they just tiptoed over it when it came to Blacksburg and the Auburn projects that really pushed everything back so that it's still going to be 2028, and it took until, and that was pushing things just to get the Christiansburg projects moved forward as they were. So it's not as cut and dry and simple as saying, here, we want to build this year, and this year. It's not that cut and dry.
so we'll talk about it on April 1st. It's like,
We got a plan. Yeah, it's incumbent upon us, right? You know, we've had conversations, we haven't put together a plan yet, and that's on us, and we'll get that done in April. Any other, I think we're still on unfinished business. Any other items of unfinished business before we go to new business?
Talking about the meeting last night, the video of Christiansburg High School was phenomenal, and I'm proud as a peacock to see what's happening there, and I just am thrilled with everything that's going on, and I hope our community is as well.
And exciting that at the beginning of the next school year, students will be in that new portion of the building. And I can't wait for folks to see the renovation when it is finished and how seamless that building will come as one. Yeah.
Is that video available to the public? I forget.
If not, we'll put it on the website. We'll put it out there.
That'd be awesome. Any items of new business?
I'd like to ask the division to put together what I've seen it called a monitoring schedule, just some kind of thematic approach to our meeting content so that we have some kind of logic to, hey, we're always going to have discipline presentations in September, and we'll always have academic opportunity presentations in February or something like that, just so to perhaps streamline things a little bit.
And it used to be like that. It did. It was on a secular cycle, and you knew what was coming up at different points in the year, because that's when they either had to be approved with different programs, or this is when we need the information so that we can make sure we're on track with what we're doing and not waiting till the end of the school year to try to make corrections and things.
We can put that together and bring it to y'all to take a look at.
Sure. It would make agenda prep easier if we kind of had a calendar of some of that stuff, right, that we started with and then added things in around it as we needed to. Any other items in new business? Any announcements?
Well, I will concur to what Dr. Bragan talked about FFA breakfast at Auburn High School this morning. It was quite enjoyable. I hadn't got to go for the last couple of years and due to scheduling, but it was wonderful, and I appreciate them doing that and everybody that was involved. And it looks like this week, or Thursday night's going to be a busy night for lots of things happening. I know the art exhibit. And then Christiansburg High School is hosting the play Clue this week. So I actually have already committed to that for Thursday night and Dana. And so if any other board member is interested in going, we are going to see Clue Thursday night, and you guys are welcome to come along. But are you going on Wednesday? Okay. So anyway, we're looking forward to that.
Anybody else? So, I journeyed to West Virginia 2 weekends ago to the service of Chris Hagel, one of our paraprofessionals at Blacksburg High School for many, many years, special ed. And I was so proud of all the folks who came from Montgomery County. Blacksburg Middle School showed out. There were almost as many people from Montgomery County as there was from that community. It was just wonderful. So I want to thank everyone.
I guess I'll just lob in a shout out for all of our students who participated in one at the Blue Ridge Highlands Regional Science Fair, both from our schools and students through Southwest Virginia Governor's School as well. So. All right.
We're going to save that one and make a special presentation, I think, because
Roger that.
that makes more sense, doesn't it?
Yep. Yeah. At the next meeting, right? I agree.
That's what I was going to mention, actually. It was all over the news, but in case somebody missed it, I just wanted our community to know that we were all there, the ones that could be, and we also had several members of the Board of Supervisors, which was very nice that they came and joined us. And it was a pleasure and an honor, not only to Montgomery County Schools, but especially to me, because the teacher, Miss Anna Drew, is a teacher from Shawsville Middle School, and she did receive, and it's a national award called the Milken Award. I had never heard of it before, and I did not realize that it is not an award you applied for, but they found you. So that speaks volumes about not only Southwest Virginia, but I think we were the only one, I was told the furthest southwest that any teacher has won this award. So 42 recipients were awarded that this year. So when you're talking about 42 in the nation, that's huge. So we should be very, very proud of our school, our teachers. I'm beyond happy and proud for Shawsville Middle School and all of the staff, the teachers, and I know that Mr. Keith was beyond proud as well. So just want to say what a great pleasure and honor it was to have one of our teachers get such a nationally recognized award. It says a lot about us. So I like to brag on us anytime I can. So I just wanted to bring that to the attention again. And then I did want to give a shout out to the counselors at Eastern Montgomery Elementary School. They all got together at some point. I don't know exactly when, but they have made at the school what is called a Zen Den. And that is for not only our students, but our teachers, and it gives them a space to go de-stress. And I've heard nothing but good things about it. And it was funded by a grant that was presented to them by the Montgomery County Educational Foundation. So I want to thank the MCEF for that grant and for allowing us to make something and provide something not only to our students but to our staff as well that will help them with their mental health. So that was all I had.
Great. Any other announcements, board?
Yeah, so some Weeblos from Pack 44 came out today to ask questions about about civic duty and running for public office and participating in the public office program for their My Community badges. And then also just congratulations to all of those that participated in the Regional Science Fair, the 6 that are going on to states and the 2 students that are going on to the International Fair in May. Are they gonna be here next meeting as well?
Just got that email today, so we didn't schedule that, but we'll see if we can recognize them.
What's that?
That meeting agenda.
All right, cool. Upcoming school board meetings. Hey, the next one's April 1st. How about that? Awesome. All right. Do I have a motion to enter into closed session as authorized by Section 2.2.3711 of the Code of Virginia to discuss two personnel matters?
So moved.
Ms. Purcell and Ms. Franklin, any discussion? Ms. Osborne, please call the roll.
Ms. Bond? Ms. Franklin?
Yes.
Dr. Gitchery?
Yes.
Ms. Parton?
Yes.
Ms. Purcell?
Yes.
Dr. Roundtree?
Yes.
Mr. Hudson?
Yes.
7 in favor.
Motion carries. We're in closed session.